welcome everyone and good evening. Um, Hope you had a really good day. I know it's a weekday, so probably tiring for everyone, whatever studies or work or whatever you have done for the day. So, so thank you again for attending the class. I know it's not easy after having a long day. So, okay. Um, so the idea of this workshop is to give you a good overview of what Power BI is, and basically if you're looking into starting your journey as a business intelligence developer or a data analyst or even a data scientist for that matter, it'll give you a very good idea of what this tool does. Okay. um, so we'll cover most of the basics in Power BI. Of course, like there are many different things in Power BI, a lot of things which are complex as well, but we'll cover everything from the basics. You'll get a general idea of how you create reports and visualizations, plus what are the capabilities which are there in Power BI. Okay, so we'll talk about all of that. And let's keep, I know there are a lot of people in this session, but let's keep it as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat. Maybe we'll take it up later at the end of the class for last 10-15 minutes, or if there is something urgent, we can talk about it then and there. And please feel free to just speak up. I know there are quite a few people, but I don't think it will be troublesome if a few of you speak up during the class. So yeah, let's keep that um, decorum in mind and let's get started. Okay, so let me share my screen. So this is the agenda which we will go through, and this is a 2-day workshop. So the idea is that today let's talk about what is Power BI. Okay, what are the capabilities in Power BI, and why do we need Power BI? And tomorrow we'll do a more kind of hands-on session where we'll look at some of the reports and how do you do certain things in Power BI like data modeling and stuff. Okay, so before I start, I think it'll be a good idea to actually go ahead and download Power BI on your desktop. So I'm assuming most of you might be using a Windows machine. If anyone is using Mac, then you'll have to have either Windows, installed as a separate partition on your Mac, or there is something called as Parallels, which is there in Mac on Apple Mac OS, where you can actually switch between Apple OS and Windows. So you can, if you have that, great, you can install it. Or if you don't have these two options, then you can actually go to Azure. You can get a free service. If you sign up the first time, you get a free $200 credit. Go to Azure, create a Windows VM on it. And for this class, I think you'll probably need it for 2-3 days. So just use that Windows VM, install it. You won't be charged anything, and you can actually install Power BI on that. Okay. For majority of people, I think, who are using Windows, let me show you where to go. So if you type in your Google or whatever Explorer you're using, just type Power BI download, and this should appear on your screen. I mean, the first link probably should be the one. So you just go there and you can download this Power BI desktop. It is completely free. You don't need any license or anything. You don't need to pay anything. Just download the installation file and install it, and you have Power BI on your machine. It's as simple as that. Okay. So do this, I mean, before tomorrow's class. I mean, since tomorrow we'll be doing a little bit of hands-on. So if you might want to follow together with me, then you can actually do that. But it'll be a good idea to just, it's free forever. So you don't have to pay anytime. You can use it on your desktop anytime you want. You never have to pay unless you use certain services, which I'll talk about later. Also, please refrain from writing on the screen. If you have your annotation tool on by any chance in Zoom, please don't do that. I see some scribbling on the screen right now. So if you can please avoid that, that will be great. Okay. So is everyone able to hear me clearly? Okay, great. All right. So let us start with basics. And let us talk about what is data visualization. Okay, many of you, I think, who have joined today's class already might have heard this term or are familiar with it, or even are probably working on it in some capacity or the other. So what is data visualization? What do you think is data visualization? And more importantly, why do we need with data visualization? Can anybody answer? Or you can type in answers in your chat. Or you can unmute and speak as well. That's also fine. Very good, Saumil, to present data to clients. Yes. But can't we do it like, so if I have like an Excel sheet, and can I not present an Excel sheet? What is wrong with that? Okay, Karthikeyan said better understanding. Yes, they're very good. Kiran said good insights. Good. Raw data into insights. Very good. Complex. Yep, very good. So yeah, that's actually, these are some of really great points. So the idea is that our brain, so we constantly, when we are awake, we see things, right? And that's actually a really good comment by Indra. 1,000 words equal to an image. That's actually a good one. So so when you are awake and you constantly are seeing something, even though you're staring into blank or void, your brain is constantly processing images, right? Whatever you see, your brain has the capacity to process images very, very fast. I mean, it's not like every time you see something, first you have to think about, okay, this is a cup. You don't, your brain doesn't have to say that this is a cup and there's tea in it and I'm drinking it. No, as soon as you see a cup, your brain subconsciously processes it, right? So what does that mean? That means that our brain has a almost infinite capacity of processing images. Okay, so when there is something in form of an image, and a vivid or a very distinct image, your brain can process it very easily. Now the same rule applies to data visualization. So if you're, let's say, working on a very complex data and you want to, let's say, present it to somebody, your client or senior manager or whoever, like in your family or whatever, and maybe the data is like, okay, what is the weather going to be for the next 20 days, right? So either one way is to, you can just put numbers in an Excel sheet, whatever the temperature is and all that for morning, noon, night, and all that, and just show it to them. Or you can create like a trend chart of, okay, the weather is going up and down. In the morning, it's constantly flat in the afternoon and dipping below in the night, or something like that. Now, when you present this, obviously you can imagine that the chart or the graph where it shows the trend of going up and down is much more easily readable than if I just show you some numbers, just numbers in one row, right? I think you'll all agree, isn't it? So that is the same idea of presenting some data, either it's a complex or a simple data, doesn't matter. If you represent it graphically, it makes much more sense, right? It's a much more easier to read. It makes much more sense than just showing our numbers. So that is why we do data visualization. And I'm sure like many of you probably are aspiring into go into data analytics or already working on it. You know that right now we deal with terabytes and petabytes of data every day. Whichever industry you look at, there is tremendous amount of data which is coming in every day, and people are finding different ways to use it in their business, right? So to deal with this complex data, to do this data analysis and everything, big data analytics, yes. So to understand this data, you just cannot look at tables, right? You cannot look at raw data and understand the meaning of it. You have to have some mechanism to be able to visualize it so that you can understand it better, so that you can find more complex patterns in it. So you can understand relationship between two variables and many other things, right? So that is why there is a great need for visualization, especially in this modern era of analytics. All right. So, I mean, just the things we talked about, visualization is very easy because it kind of encodes the data or encodes those visual points in a certain way. Either it's a chart or a graph or a heat map or whatever it is. It encodes that data in a certain way, which is much more easier for your brain to understand, right? That is the entire purpose of data visualization. Okay. Um, Again, people familiar with data exploration or visualization and all those things can obviously figure out that when you do exploratory data analysis, whether let's say you're working on a machine learning project and you want to do a exploration of your entire data set, it becomes very easy when you are working with bars and charts. So people who have already studied machine learning might know that there are a couple of libraries in Python like Seaborn and Matplotlib, which can create many different charts and graphs to give you a statistical meaning of the data which is presented in, right? And that's how then you explore the data and find out the information which is hidden in it. Okay. So again, why do we need data visualization right now? Because there is a huge quantity of data we deal with every day. Data is growing at an accelerated rate, and that is why, I mean, there are so many jobs also out there for data analytics, data scientists, Power BI developers and all that. So because there is a huge amount of data coming in almost every industry you can think of, right? Many industries are still finding out ways to do it, but right now most of them have already started their analytics journey. I don't think you will find any industry right now which is not doing anything with data. Okay. You need data driven insights because there is so much data coming in and you want to look at the right part of the data in the right manner so that you can make better decisions for your business, right? Of course, every business, what is the main bottom line for every business? What is the main goal for each business, for every business in the world? To do what? Make profit. Very good, right? That is the ultimate aim for any business, isn't it? I mean, there is not non-profit organizations also, but think about, I mean, they are making profit in a sense of helping out others, or that is their profit inherently. But yes, everybody, I mean, the ultimate goal of business is making profit. And with so much data coming in, the idea is that how can you harness this data so that you can increase your revenue, decrease costs, increase sales, and get the maximum profit eventually at the end of the year, right? Of course, all of this, I mean, earlier it was mainly more statistical in nature. Now with machine learning coming in, almost, it's almost now 10 years where machine learning has been commercialized at a very good pace, and everybody is starting to use AI and advanced analytics to make again these data driven insights and figure out what would be the future of my business, how would the forecast look like, which customer is going to buy which product, and many other things. Okay. So again, all of these things, the underlying part is data. And to do any of these things, either create data driven insight or doing machine learning, you need to understand your data first, right? And to understand your data visualization is probably the best and the easiest way to do it. Okay. I mean, of course, it doesn't mean that just for machine learning you do data visualization. There are uh, so in any industry, people need reports, right? And reports have been around for as long as there have been industries. So 100 200 years ago also, like manufacturing industries, they used to have reports, right? Which machine has failed, which employees coming in and what time, all of these are reports, isn't it? So reports have been around for 200, 300 years now, since the industrial revolution started. I think even before that, people, even in non-industry spaces, people obviously, maybe, I'm sure they took reports of many other things, right? So even presenting these reports or these daily operational reports, or maybe your HR reports or your employee reports, salaries, etc., so many things like in an organization, client reports, customer reports, even showing those in a visual sense makes much more sense, because then you can make decisions on it. You can see the trends, you can see what's happening in historically with something in your department and many other things. So it's not only about machine learning, it's also about these reports which you use day to day on an operational basis and so on. Okay, so again, for that, data visualization is really helpful. Okay, again, guys, please, if you're touching your screen or touching your mouse and maybe your annotation tool is on, so please don't do that, because it's actually scribbling it on the screen. All right, okay, so why does data visualization work better? Again, the idea is that because our brain is able to process visuals much more faster than anything else. Even when you're not attentive, your brain is seeing something and it's still processing it subconsciously at the back of your mind, right? So that's why I mean, this visualization or objects or visuals are kind of like a continuous stimulus to your brain, and your brain is already processing them. That's why when you're attentive and when you're seeing something, obviously you will focus more, you'll try to find, more hidden insights into the visuals and all that, right? I mean, if you see the boxes over here, immediately, like, you can see, okay, there's a dark spot, your brain will immediately focus on that dark spot, right? The other box, there's a red spot over there, your brain will immediately focus on the red spot without noticing everything else. Why? Because it stands out, in the image. And this is the power of your brain. Something which is, standing out, or there's a pattern in it, your brain will immediately recognize it. Look at like the angle line over here, your brain can immediately tell you, okay, this is like a different line, all lines are vertical, whereas this is like a diagonal line. Okay, you can immediately figure out that there's a longer line than all the different lines over here. There's a thicker line, there's like there are curves, but this is a straight line. Sizes, shapes, some added marks, whatever it is, right? Your brain can easily decipher it with minimal uh, efficiency, right? And that's why, again, visualization here, like visuals, make much more sense than looking at something. Now, take a look at this. If I tell you how many fives there are, can you tell me how many fives there are in this entire digits? Can somebody answer? Just take a look and tell me how many fives there are. 8, Ankit said, okay. Okay, everybody's got 8, 9, 11, 11. Good. 10, 10. Very good. So it took you a while, right, to predict. I'm also not sure what the right answer is. Okay. Now, if I present the data like this, now can you tell me how many fives there are? 11, isn't it? And I think everybody answered very, very quick this time. So what is the reason? Why did it take longer? And many answers were wrong, right? Now there are 11, you see. Many of you said 9, 10 and all that. So many answers were wrong, but this time almost everyone is correct with 11. So why did that happen? Very good. Red highlighted color. So immediately I told you to look at 5, and 5 was highlighted in a specific, vivid color or whatever. Maybe it was bold or whatever it was. Immediately your brain can now focus on that specific pattern and quickly count all the fives, right? So it was such a quick identification, isn't it? So this is the power you can see. I mean, just from your own test, how your brain works very fast in these cases, right? Another example. So this is actually a map of measles of number of people infected per 100,000 in the US. And it's from 1930s, little before that, I think till 2010. So this is what we call as a heat map. Okay, because it shows you in colors how much, like what is the sort of density or number of people depending on this gradient scale, which is over here. We highlight that. So if you look at the gradient scale over here, this tells you that the greenish area or colors is between 0 to 500 maybe. The oranges is between 500 to 2000, and the red area is 500 to 4000. Okay, so now look at this graph. Okay, these are different states of the US, and this every column is 1 year. Okay, every year, 19 from starting from 1927, I think. So this is every year and showing you how many people were there infected with measles in each state. Now there's a cutoff line over here, this black line. Okay, specifically highlighted is 1963. What do you see after 1963? What can you decipher from this graph? What is happening after 1963? From looking at this heat map, what do you see? Infection rate dropped. Very good. Very good. Infection rate started dropping, right? Yep. You're right. Somil, yes. Good. Durga, yes. So why now can you tell me, looking at this, so there was huge number of people infected till 1963. I mean, every year people were getting infected and quite a lot, right? I mean, the more the population, like for New York and all those bigger California, more populated areas, you'll see there is more red and oranges because there are more people, obviously. But after 1963, the rate dropped, which I think everyone is able to see from the graph. Now, without telling anything to you, can you imagine or can you think why this could have happened? Without knowing anything, without knowing any history. Can you think why this could have happened? Very good. Medicine, vaccination. Excellent. Right? So the only explanation to this is that there was a vaccination in 1963, and that's why the measles rate started dropping. Right? So just by looking at the chart without giving you any information, right, you were able to tell that there was a probable cause of case of vaccine which happened in 1963, and that's why the measles rate dropped off. So immediately from the heat map, you could see that the cases were very, very high during the initial 30 years or so, and then they started dropping drastically. And after a while, I mean, you can see it's very, very light. I mean, it's probably 100 or 200 people per 100,000. So obviously the very, very low. That's why the entire of this area is in lightish blue color, which is, if you look at the gradient, the light blue is like towards the end. So it's like maybe 100, 200 people, something like that. So again, you can imagine the power of your brain to decipher this image very fast, right? If I would have presented this in a table and said that, okay, these are the numbers for each, uh, something like this. If I would have created a table like this and I have said like different columns and all different, rows for different state, and I would have filled numbers over here, something like this, then it would have been very hard to, first of all, figure out the trend every year, like how the measles rate is dropping or increasing every year. Plus, again, because I'm writing small numbers, but these are big numbers in thousands. So again, your brain would have taken a lot of time to really figure out, okay, these are in thousands. Now I see a reduction of 2000 or so, and then slowly dropping. It would have taken a lot of time, right? But the same data presented visually gave you a quick understanding of what is happening over here, isn't it? So again, this is the power of visualization, which you see, right? So vaccine introduced in 1963, and that is why uh, the measles rate started dropping. Okay, makes sense. Now, this is like a color coded graph. Okay, this is like a heat map, what we call. I'll show you in Power BI tomorrow, like some example of a heat map, how it is created. But there are many different ways of actually creating these charts and graphs. Okay, some of the things which you probably want to keep in mind when you're creating these graphs and charts are, what is the position of the data in your chart, what is the length. So for example, if you're showing a numbers, if you're showing any numbers, then typically like length or thickness or width of a bar or graph or whatever is more visual than anything, right? If you're showing like categories, then something like colors makes much more sense, or saturation or density of colors makes much more sense. Size, again, if you're showing numbers, then size. So for example, population of a country, the bigger the bubble, the bigger the population, something like that. Angle, texture, there are many other things. Okay, if you look at this chart on the right, there are three types of data shown here. Quantitative is nothing but numbers. Ordinal is something like a categorical with some rank in it. Okay, like for example, good, better, best, worst, something like that. And nominal is nothing but your categories which don't have any rank. For example, like gender, or what else? I mean, anything which doesn't have a rank necessary. Okay, so like types of movies doesn't have a rank, but there's just types. Okay, a hue is nothing but your sort of contrast. A hue is color and contrast together. So for example, if you see hue over here, it is what your basically colors, different colors identifying things with different colors and such. And saturation is more heavily towards contrast, like how much it is saturated and all that. Okay. So if you see on the right, uh, position of the data is the most important in all categories. Like whether it's a numerical data, whether it's a categorical data, position comes first, right? Your position of the data should be correct depending on whatever it is, right? And then after that, you can then do, like, I mean, this is not exactly, I would say, take a reference from exactly this graph, but it gives you a good idea of what you should show. Okay. So for example, in a numerical data, length, you can use length to show whether number is large or small. You can show angle to show whether like it's a, so for example, if somebody has seen correlation graphs, then a 45-degree angle means very high correlation, a lower angle means low correlation, and so on. 90-degree means no correlation, something like that. Okay. So then area, volume, density, all of that actually is what you um, can use in your quantitative information. Okay. Does it make sense? Any questions? Okay. So look at one more example, right? It's talking about like, visual encoding of length and quantitative data. The same data is shown as two different ways, right? You have sales of donut sales, okay, in Australia, in the Victoria state, and these are all the cities in that state. And you have basically this left hand side graph shows you what is the color, or the high color or high or darker color basically shows you that the sales are high. If you look at the gradient over here, the gradient scale which is made over here, your minimum sale is I think $409, maximum is 73,844, whatever. So the darker the color, the more the sales. That is what it means. right? Now look at the same data over here. Okay, here the sales is on the x-axis and the cities is on the y-axis. Okay, and the length of the bar shows you what is the total sale in that city. Like Melbourne is around more than 70,000, then Geelong, Bendigo, Ballarat, and all that. Okay, so which of this graph is easier to read? Although they both convey the same information and there is nothing wrong. I mean, the information here also is correct, the information here also is correct. But which gives you a better idea? The right side graph, right? I think everyone agrees to that, isn't it? Why? Because again, it is more effective and your brain can process it much more faster. Okay, I can clearly see that Melbourne is the highest city in terms of sale. I don't know what the last city is. Acuca, maybe that is the city with the lowest sales. I can immediately see that. I can also see that there's a huge difference between Melbourne and Geelong, the second highest sales city. Whereas if I look at the left graph, I cannot make, what is the actual difference here. If somebody asked me right off the, off the top of my head, what is the difference? So I can easily say, okay, 35 and 70, there's a 35,000, approximately $35,000 difference sales between them. But here, I cannot tell that. I cannot tell that there's a $35,000 difference between these two cities. Here I can clearly, right? So again, you can use any visualizations, but what is the idea eventually? The idea is to convey the information in a very simple and effective manner, right? So that is why choosing graphs and choosing what type of graphs you make for data is very, very important. Okay. So this is what, I mean, this basically example demonstrate that although you can show it in any way you want to, but obviously the idea is that you have to convey it in a very simple and effective way. Okay. Now this is, there are some chart types and this is not an exhaustive list. There are many other chart types which are available. So, but these are some basic types of charts which you might, want to look at for creating reports. So one is your multi-bar where you have different bars. One is your stacked bar. There's a spider chart, which you typically don't use a lot, but where you want to show concentration across different categories, then you use a spider graph. There's a color table, just like we saw earlier. There's a scatter plot, which shows relationships. There's a line graph. There's a multi-line, stack line, pie chart, bar graph. I think you must have seen many of these chart types at least somewhere or the other. Okay. Okay. So this is again not a comprehensive table, I would say, but it gives you a good reference on what type of chart which to use on what type of data which you're presenting. Okay. So Abhishek, to your question. So for example, if you're showing a comparison between some data points, okay, then you might use like a heat map or a horizontal chart or a vertical bar chart or a combo chart which has bar and line together. Okay, something like that. Um, Actually, I don't think I'll be able to zoom this particular slide, but I'll send it to you. Okay, I think you'll have the slide, so you can take a look over there. But like I said, don't go exactly by this reference. This is just a reference of what type of charts you can create to make. So if you have a relationship, then scatter or bubble chart is probably the best one. If you want to show a trend, like what is the trend over time, then you might show like a line graph like this. Okay. If you want to show the composition, like for example, my product and my competitor's product, how much is the market share for between both, then you might show like a pie chart, where pie chart, what does a pie chart show? It shows you out of 100%, what is your percentage of the pie, right? So this is what it actually does. So many distribution, I mean, again, somebody who's working in data science or data analytics right now, you can probably relate to this easier. You have like you have a histogram, you have a distribution kernel, Okay, a standard distribution, you have your scatter plot, you have your bar plots, okay, which tell you your 5-point summary and all that. Okay, so again, not a exhaustive list, but depending on what you want to show or what the data is, you'll probably stick to a couple of 4 or 5 of these charts for one type of usage. Okay. Radha, you're asking, should we need to sign up for Power BI? No, you don't need to sign up. You can just download it. If you sign up, that's fine. You have to create a Microsoft account. Okay, but you don't necessarily need to sign up. Right? Sorry. I'll send the PPT. I'll just repeat once more. So what I was saying is that depending on what type of data you are trying to show, right, you'll select one of the chart types from here. And this is not again an exhaustive list. There are many other chart types as well. Okay. Just a second. Give me a second. Somebody said, actually, I think somebody said I can zoom it. So I'm trying to see from where I can do that. Ah, there it is. It's hidden under this. Ah, okay. Hope you can see it better. Okay. So depending on what the type of data is, uh, so for example, if you're showing a comparison between two variables or two different data points, okay, then you can probably use a heat map. Okay. So for just the example like we saw earlier, right now, you want to show comparison between 5 or 6 cities, sales, what is the sales total amount is happening in those regions. Then you can probably use a heat map, which was not great over there. It was just a heat map, which we saw in the slide earlier. But over there, the horizontal bar chart was much more better. Okay, for because it was showing like a length of how much revenue and all is generated for each of the cities. Vertical bar chart also works fine there. Combo chart also works fine. Okay. If you want to show it over time, then maybe like a line chart is better, or multiple line charts. Okay. There's something called as radar chart or that spider chart, which is again for some time period if you want to show. If you're trying to graph, or if you're trying to visualize relationship between 2 or 3 different uh, categories or variables or whatever, then scatter plot is a really good one, which can tell you, okay, there is one data on the x-axis, there's one data on the y-axis, and depending on how the scatter plot is, it will show you whether there's a linear relationship or a non-linear relationship and all of that. Okay, so then bubble chart is also good. So for example, I was telling you that if you want to show over time, let's say you have countries on this axis, you have time over here, and you want to show the population. So like, for example, smaller countries will have smaller population. Over time, bigger countries might have bigger population. So you can show like a bubble chart over there. Okay. Then if you want to show the distribution of data, again, this is more specific to, like I said, people who have already studied some statistical or have some statistical background. Then how is the data distributed, whether it's like a normal density, or it's like a Poisson distribution or a normal distribution, and so on, so on. Okay, so this is more again towards your uh, machine learning and statistical usage. And finally, if you want to see, let's say, comparison or trend, okay, what is happening over time, then you might want to use either these tagged column charts or stacked area charts. Or if you want to show like a static distribution where you want to see that, okay, I have 5 products in the market, what is the market share for each of my products? Then maybe like a pie chart will show you that product A has 60%, product B has 10%, product C has 5%, and so on. So, okay. Practical example, distribution graph, any graph which you can get. So example, if I want to see what is the distribution of maybe let's say salary for all the employees in my company, how does the distribution look like? It should actually look like a normal distribution, right? It should look something like this. Always normal distribution is the best distribution you can have. So you can take any variable, like you can, I mean, salary is just an example. You can take your distribution of, for example, uh, maybe population over time, a distribution of population across one state, or across several cities, or any other thing, right? You can, so that is what distribution shows you. So that is an example of a distribution chart. It's typically used to see whether a variable follows a normal distribution or not, and if it doesn't, then what is the means, what is the cause, and so on. It's typically used in more in statistical usage. So these are types of different charts which you can use depending on what type of data. Okay, so in summary, like what is the, so this 6-step process is typically just like what you would follow in a normal software engineering, or if you're making a product, or if you're doing a machine learning project, is the same, right? Except the maybe the first two things, which are again the same for most of the projects, but in visualization projects, the a very big key is that you need to understand who you are presenting it to. Okay, so if you're presenting it to maybe like a senior management or C-level CEO or CXO or CFO kind of person, then your graph needs to be very simple and quick to understand, and of course show what data your senior management wants to probably look at, right? If you're maybe showing it to some low level manager, or maybe your teammate, or maybe somebody who is as technical as you, then you can make much more complex graphs, and where you can show more complex data and talk about more. But you have to understand your audience. Okay, if you show a very complex graph to a senior manager or a C-level person, that person might get annoyed, because they have maybe like just 1 or 2 minutes to browse over the entire report, right? They cannot afford to spend 5 minutes looking at one chart and trying to make sense of it, right? So for that kind of person, your graph should be very easy, very simple to understand, and should give the meaning in probably like 30 seconds. Whereas somebody like an operations manager who wants to know the exact details of what's happening in the project or in the department, there you might show more details in the graph. You might show 10 different data points, 10 different charts on your dashboard, one chart for product, one chart for sales, one for customer type, and all that, and all bar graph, heat map, everything. So there, because that operation manager is going to spend 1-2 hours understanding, looking at the reports and understanding what is happening, because that person has to take a decision based on those data points, right? So you have to understand your audience very clearly in data visualization. Okay, that's a very important point. And of course, the second point is, what are you trying to answer, right? What is the question? What are you trying to answer over here? Because if the question is that I want to see what is my competitors share of the market and how is that increase over time, if that is a question, and you give a report which shows um, profit and loss of your products compared to your competitor, then that doesn't make sense, right? Because what I really want to see is just my competitors trend over time. I do not want to see anything like, I do not want to see profit and loss compared with my products or whatever. Okay, so depending on what it is, okay, depending on what question it is, it becomes very important that you answer that question based on you answer that question in a very concise and clear manner. Okay, so those two are very important. And then of course, this is a very all those 4 points, rest of them are a typical like software engineering project. You create a design, a very rough design, then you iterate it over time, show it to users, test it out with users, and then get feedback, change it, and do this loop continuously, maybe 10, 15 times until you have the final report. And then you can publish it for usage. Okay. So this is like a general overview which I wanted to give on what is visualization and why do we typically need it. Okay. And what is in a visualization project, like what are the key things which you probably want to keep in mind when you're doing such kind of project. Okay. Any questions over here? Let's talk about what Power BI is and what are the different things which you can expect in a Power BI tool. Okay. So like I said, we are going to do some hands-on sessions as well tomorrow. Okay, if we have time, but it's important to like first understand what Power BI is and then jump onto a hands-on session. So tomorrow we'll do 2 hour hands-on. I'll show you all the basics in Power BI and how to create reports and stuff. And I think your assignment should be easy to complete once you know that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Power BI. Before Power BI, we jump into Power BI. Can you mute? Please. Wait. All right. So let's talk about what is Power BI. Before that, can anyone tell me what are some other tools like Power BI, if you have heard of anything? Ganesh, you're right. Powerful business intelligence tool. So, Tableau, yes. Anything else? SQL is not a visualization tool. Excel, yeah. Excel is kind of a visualization tool, yes. Looker, MicroStrategy, yes. QuickSight, very good. That's another one. Python has its own, obviously, visualization libraries, Matplotlib and Streamlit, yeah. Has anyone heard of Click? Yeah, ClickView. I saw something. ClickSense, yes. So Power BI is not the only visualization tool out there. Okay, there are many different tools which are in the market right now. Power BI happens to be probably the top tools among that. Okay, Power BI, Tableau, Click. These three are the top 3 tools which are out there in the market, and majority of the businesses who are doing some kind of business intelligence or reporting, they use these tools. Okay. Now there are other tools which I think a lot of people have already mentioned. There's Amazon QuickSight, there is MicroStrategy, there is SAP. SAP has its own business intelligence tools for reporting and all that. There is Alteryx. There are many other different tools which are out there. IBM has something. By the way, Tableau has been bought over by Salesforce. You probably might have read a couple of years back. So it's now Salesforce owned it, but it's still called Tableau. So Cognos is on, yes. So there are tools, and but these 3 are the top among them. So if you have heard of something called as a Gartner Magic Quadrant, then they publish this report every year for different kind of tools and etc. So business intelligence tools. If you Google Gartner Magic Quadrant BI tools for 2023, you can actually see where all these tools are. You'll see that Power BI is at the top, then there's Tableau, and then there's Click, and then all the others are somewhere around there. Okay. So why do you think? And a fun fact is that Tableau and Click were probably the first entrants. Okay, of in the early entrants and with good tools in the BI space. Okay, Tableau. I worked with Tableau many years ago when it came out. Even ClickSense and ClickView when they started coming out many years ago. Power BI wasn't there. Okay, Power BI wasn't. Nobody had even heard of Power BI. And suddenly in 2016, Microsoft came up with this Power BI tool, and they started giving out free trial versions and ask people to, okay, go and try it out, see what it is and all that. And within 3-4 years, it jumped at the top. Okay. So it's at the top since last 2-3 years. There's no better tool than that for many reasons. But what do you think is the major reason that the acceptance of Power BI was so quick? Can you think about it? Like Power BI came so late, but features, real-time data, okay, easy access. So all these features which you see in Power BI are also there in Tableau and ClickView, right? There is nothing really special or one miracle feature in Power BI which is not there in Tableau and ClickView. But why do you think Power BI was accepted so quick compared to others? Yes, Mihir mentioned, it's a Microsoft product. And what do 95% of the businesses around the world use? What do you think they use? Microsoft services, right? Windows, isn't it? 95% of the businesses in the world use Windows, Microsoft products. So imagine if there's a tool which can connect to your Microsoft products by a click of a button and visualize the data which you have in the Microsoft products already since many, many years, then why wouldn't people go to that product, right? I mean, when Tableau and ClickView came out, they had to actually build these connectors and special like integration APIs and stuff to connect to Microsoft products, to SQL Server, to Excel, to SharePoint. But Microsoft already had these inbuilt, right? So when they came out with Power BI, everything is Microsoft. They just integrated it with their services. So using Excel in Power BI is just like a click of a button. Now it's again click of a button in Tableau also. But when it came out, it was just click of a button, connect to SQL Server, click button, connect to Excel, click button, connect to Data Lake, whatever. So all the products by Microsoft which people were already using, they were now very, very easy to access through Power BI. And that is why Power BI jumped in 2-3 years right to the place where Tableau was at that time, where Tableau and ClickView was. And of course, I mean, since it's Microsoft, so they kept on adding a lot of new features, a lot of third-party marketplace items and all of that, and made Power BI really stand out from all the other competitors. Okay. And right, Vedant, you're right. It's part of MS365 bundle as well. MS365 is what all companies are using now. It's Office 365 Dynamics, a lot of names, but that is the online system which everyone is using now. Okay. Um, Saurav, you say Tableau also has maps. So Power BI actually bought a company called ArcGIS Maps. They integrated into Power BI. I'll show that to you. But Tableau also has GeoMaps in it. There are all features, like I said, is there in all other tools. It's not like Power BI is very different from Tableau. It's almost the same. Okay, except that Power BI, the the main advantage is Power BI can connect very easily to Microsoft products. And the other very big advantage which Tableau doesn't give you is Power BI desktop is free. So the link I showed you, you go to Power BI desktop, you can download Power BI desktop for free, and you can use it lifelong for free on your desktop. Okay, you don't need never have to pay a single dime for it. And you can actually create reports in Power BI and share that report with somebody else, that the person you're sharing with just has to download Power BI on their desktop and see the report. So it is, I mean, that is what the power of this entire feature is. Whereas Tableau, I have not been to Tableau in like a couple of years, but Tableau, at least 2 years back, when you downloaded it, it was a 15-day free trial. And after that, you had to pay for the license. I think it's still there. It's still paid. I don't think they made it free. But see, that is the advantage. I mean, people like us who are learning a visualization tool, why wouldn't we go for something which is free? Why would we pay Tableau to learn something, from by paying similar tool where it's available for free, right? So that is the two very big differences where Power BI really stands out in my opinion from these tools. Okay, so let's talk about what is Power BI. Um, Power BI can connect to your cloud data, your on-premise data. On-premise data means your basically SQL server, which is hard. I mean, your something which is hardware which is stored on your premises, not a cloud. Okay. Uh, then you have all of these things which you can actually create out of it. You can send it to web browser, you can send it to mobile phones in Excel, you can embed it in an application, you can send it to Cortana, which is Microsoft AI assistant, and all of that. Okay. uh, Evans, you're asking, can we use Power BI browser version? I don't think so. You can use browser version because that's a paid service, but you'll be able to use desktop version, and desktop version is better, right? I mean, it runs on your own local machine, so it harnesses the power of your machine, so probably better to run that. So these are all the things which are available in Power BI. Okay, you have Power BI desktop, which I asked you to download. You have Power BI service. Okay, this is a paid service, okay, which typically companies use, and this is a this is the place where you can actually publish your reports and share it within your organization or with users if you want to, depending on what they have access to the Power BI service or not. So this is something which is like a paid service. Okay. Then there is Power BI Premium. So Power BI Premium is for very large scale deployment. So imagine like a very big company, something like JP Morgan or Citibank or anything else, like any insurance, big hospital or whatever, where there are a lot of different users, there are a lot of different developers, many different type of users. So where one report or one dashboard is going out to maybe thousands of users. For that purpose, you have Power BI Premium. So Power BI Premium gives you more dedicated hardware and dedicated capacity to use. Then you have Power BI Report Server. It is nothing but like a physical server which you can install just like a SQL server or any other application server which you might want to install. So this just is on your on-premise hardware. And again, like if you have a lot of workload on Power BI where you're creating thousands of reports, thousands of users are using Power BI, thousands of users are looking at the reports and so on, so on. There, it makes sense to actually install a physical server on your premise. Okay. And then you have application development where you use Power BI embedded. So Power BI embedded is nothing but something, a Power BI report which you can insert it in a mobile application or in a web browser or on a website or whatever. Okay, that is your Power BI embedded. Okay, Power BI desktop, like I said, I mean, you can do all of these things, connect to data, analyze data, visualize stuff, publish the reports, collaborate with other people. Just from this free service that you have, you can do all of these things. Okay. Uh, then Power BI service, it's like a cloud-based SaaS solution, which is, what is SaaS? I think most of the people know. Software as a service is SaaS. Okay, so means you are not buying the software, you're basically using it as a service, you're paying as you go. So cloud is nothing but a SaaS, right? So Power BI service is something which is available on cloud, and this is a paid service. Obviously it is much better because, I mean, from your Power BI desktop, because it runs on the cloud, so it harnesses the power of the cloud. You don't need to worry about your hardware. If you have very slow machine, then Power BI will run very slow, obviously, and it provides real-time connections to data and all of that. Okay. Then you have Power BI Premium, which I just said, which gives you dedicated capacity across different tiers. So you can actually have 2, 3, 4, 5 types of premium capacities. So for example, if your specific workload is very high, then you can move it to a larger premium capacity and make more use of hardware and more resources which Power BI Microsoft provides you for usage. Okay. Again, Power BI Premium is a paid service and little expensive than Power BI service. Okay. And then you have Power BI report server, which I have not seen till now if anyone has installed a Power BI server on premises, but there's an option to do that when Microsoft gives you. The good part about Power BI report server is that um, it also lets you run SSRS reports, which are nothing but SQL Server reporting service. It's a reporting service out of SQL Server. So it also lets you run that. So people who already have an SSRS server typically go with Power BI report server if their workload is very high. And then you have Power BI embedded, which like I said, you can create Power BI reports and put it within some application like a mobile application or a web page or a web browser or any application which you are creating. You can embed the reports directly in it. Okay, embed means like there'll be a small window within your web page where the Power BI report will be displayed, and other things will be like your mobile application things like click here and all that. So this is a very powerful feature, and I have seen this used a lot in many different industries across many different use cases. So this is a very great feature which Power BI provides. Okay. So this is like your personal Power BI means personal Power BI means very few users are using it. So how would that architecture look like? It was something we like, your data sources over here. Your data sources over here. It could be on premise. Is the screen visible to everyone? Are you guys able to see the screen? Okay. Somebody said it's not visible, so I'm just wondering. Yeah, so this will on the left hand side, you see all the different type of data sources where you can connect to. It could be a cloud, it could be an on-premise server, your Excel files, folders, whatever. Okay. You write some queries and you pull the data into your Power BI desktop. Okay, which we'll be doing this tomorrow when I show you. Uh, Writing queries, again, that's a more advanced topic, but you can actually connect to Excel and just pull the data in. Okay. So you can pull the data in over here in the Power BI desktop. You can write some transformational queries. So let's say I want to filter the data just on one particular state or one particular city. Then I can filter it within this query. Okay, I can get the data and then I can create the reports out of it. Okay, once I have my reports, I can publish the file. Now, important thing to note here, when you save a Power BI file, the extension is .pbix. Okay, this is the extension get saved. So you can publish that PBIX file on either you send it to somebody over email or a shared drive. That person will have to have a Power BI desktop to see it. Or the way it happens in an organization is you publish it to a Power BI service. Okay. If you remember, we just saw Power BI service is a cloud application where you can put your reports. And at Power BI service, now you can actually create dashboards. You can put the report as it is. You can put Excel workbooks over there. You can put data sets over there. You can actually create alerts. For example, 100 users are, so there are 100 users for who want to see your annual revenue report. Okay. Once you publish the report to the Power BI service, immediately an email alert or some kind of alert will go to those users and they will know that, okay, the new report is available. You can click on this to view it. Okay, something like that. And you can also print, export, download whatever report you have published from your Power BI service. Okay. Now, one very important thing to note over here, you see two different things over here, report and dashboard. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between those two? There's a very subtle difference, but what is the difference over here? What do you think is the difference? Dashboard will have KPI status. Okay, very good. Interaction. Okay, very good. Yeah, good answers. So report, I mean, to be honest, like there is a very, very small difference. Some people call interchange dashboard and reports all the time. Okay. So, but usually a dashboard is something which consists of many different reports. Okay. I think all of you are saying like really good points over here. So dashboard has a lot of these charts, lot of these data on a single page. Okay. So imagine dashboard comes from something like the dashboard of your car, okay, or your dashboard of your two-wheeler. So what does your car dashboard show you? It shows you the speed, it shows you the acceleration, it shows you the fuel level, it shows you the temperature of the car inside, and all of those things, right? Now, all of these things are coming from different systems. Your fuel is coming from your fuel tank, your acceleration is coming from your axles, your and chassis, your temperature, engine temperature is coming from your engine. So there are a lot of different these parts through, and reports from all of these parts are getting displayed on one particular common panel. Okay, that is a dashboard. So it provides like a single screen where you can see many different reports. And if you want to now go to a particular report, you can actually click and go to that particular report directly. Okay, so in Power BI desktop, you cannot create a dashboard. Like that's one very important thing to remember. In Power BI desktop, you can only create reports. Once you publish it to Power BI service, then you can create dashboards over there. Okay. So this is a very big difference, right? Just keep in mind, I mean, once you work on this, you'll know better, obviously. But just one thing to keep in mind that dashboards are different in this way. All right. In Power BI, in any actually in Tableau or whatever. Okay. Uh, sorry, Anas. I'll repeat once more. So dashboard is something which is like a single page uh, visual, which shows you many different reports in one pane, in one visual pane. Okay. You can click on those reports and go to those particular reports if you want to. That's the feature in Power BI. So, but the idea of a dashboard is like if I do not want to see all the details of each report, immediately I can see on a quick glance, like what is my KPI, what is this number, what is my revenue for this year, and so on, so on, so on a single screen. Okay, single page. If I have 2 minutes to see, I can look at the dashboard and be done with it. All right. Reports will give you more detailed level view. That's all. Okay. Uh, yes, Ram Seva, Power BI service is paid. Okay, it's not a free service. So, uh, I mean, we cannot use it right now. You can pay for it if you really want to use it, but it's typically used in organizations. Okay. So this is how your typical Power BI architecture would look like. Okay, this is our typical Power BI architecture. Let me zoom it a little bit. Would look like. Okay. Now, this second one over here, this is more of a, you can say, bigger organization wide Power BI architecture. Okay. So uh, if you see on this side, it's the same thing, but now look at the Power BI service. Okay. It has slight differences. First of all, you have the same app workspace, which we just saw earlier. Okay. But you also have an app service over there. Okay. So in app workspace, you have your dashboards and reports and all that, and many users can see it. But that's from a PBIX file which you have published. If you want to create an application out of it, then you can also create an application and create an application out of that report, which you can then send to users. Okay. So, I mean, right now on the diagram, you won't understand the difference a lot, but technically behind the scenes, these two things are very different. Okay, this is the app workspace is actually where you publish your Power BI files and stuff, whereas the app which is shown on the right side is your application which you have created. Okay, it could be any application in Node or Java or whatever. Okay, and then you can publish in Power BI service, and that you can send it out to users. Uh, you can also see that it connects to Power BI mobile app. It also connects to Power BI desktop. It also connects to the data also has a data gateway so that only authorized users are able to access it and so on, so on. Okay. So that is the entire idea of this bigger service. So we just saw Power BI desktop, what it is. It shows you all the different uh, yeah, it shows you all the different things you can do: get data, analyze, visualize, publish, collaborate, and all of that stuff, right? Uh, you there are now, when it says get data, you mean you can connect to any data source you want to. Okay, there are many different data sources available. There are more than hundreds of data sources you can imagine: Oracle, IBM DB2, Salesforce, SAP, uh, Microsoft Access, Amazon Redshift, Data Lake, Azure Data Lake, Azure Synapse, Facebook integration, Google integration, whatever you can think of, wherever data resides, whatever data service you can think of, Power BI can connect to that. It has like, one-click connectors. You just click it depending on what data you are using. I mean, you probably need to authenticate it, right? And then once you authenticate it, you'll be able to pull the data in very easily. Okay. Kaggle, yes, good example. Okay. So Power BI can connect to everything. Okay, right out of the box. So when you basically get your data, okay, when you get your data, the first thing which you do is you transform your data. Okay, this is something which I'll again show you tomorrow. What do you mean by transform? What do you think transform data does? Cleaning, formatting, very good. Okay, so when you pull the data, there could be, garbage values in it. There could be something which you don't need. There could be a column which you probably want to see it as a decimal instead of a whole number. There could be a date which you probably want to see it as a day instead of actual date. So all of that formatting, preparation, transformation, you can do it in Power BI. Okay. So you can directly do it in Power BI. You do not need to change anything on the source data. You can do everything in Power BI and you can actually get the data once you change it, it gets loaded into Power BI. Important thing here to remember is that since now we are using Power BI desktop for free version. So Power BI desktop free version has a limit of 1 GB of data. Okay, you can actually load 1 GB of data into Power BI. So right now for practice purpose, you'll be using Excel sheets and CSV files. So they are not bigger than 200, 300 MB at the max. Okay, so you can easily play around with it. But once you start connecting to SQL Server or MySQL or something, some, server services, then uh, your Power BI desktop might not work. Okay, because it can only load 1 GB of, it only has 1 GB of memory internally, which it can load data in. Okay. So for that, then you need Power BI Premium and all of those services which are paid. Um, then you can visualize it, obviously. Okay. Once you have the data, you can visualize it very easily, and you can share your reports across. So all of these things you can do in Power BI desktop. Okay, for free. Uh, this is again not a exhaustive list, but a comprehensive list of all the data sources. I'll just zoom it a little bit. All the different data sources Power BI can connect to. Okay, you can see there is file type of data sets like Excel, CSV, XML, JSON file, PDF, SharePoint, date, all the databases. Like you name it and you'll probably see it over here. Yeah, it can go. Yes, Gaurav, you can do PDF also. So it has a capability of reading the PDFs and extracting the data from there. Okay. So SQL Server database, Access, IBM DB2, Oracle, SAP, HANA, anything like that's why like you name anything. Azure, I mean, Azure itself has so many different type of sources. Yep, folder means, so let's say you have a file, lot of different files in a particular folder. You can actually connect that entire folder and you can take all those text files from there. So that is also a data source for folders. I mean, if you have worked with SharePoint, then SharePoint is actually structured in folder format. So that's why folder is also, there's a SharePoint folder, which is a separate option, and there's a folder also separate option. Okay, so you can use any of that. Yeah, Azure itself has so many of these, data sources, like you saw, Azure SQL, data warehouse, data lake, Cosmos DB, so on. Okay, online services where you have like, Google and Facebook and so many other things. Okay. Okay, Thirumal, your question is Power BI is offline or online? Good question. So Power BI desktop is offline. Okay, Power BI desktop is offline. It does connect to internet, and I mean, you can actually connect to any online services. That's not a problem, right? But it's an offline platform. Power BI service, on the other hand, is an online platform. Okay, so that's the difference. It doesn't mean that Power BI cannot connect to Google services or Amazon or all these cloud services. It can. Okay, but yeah, otherwise it's an offline thing which is installed on your machine. Okay, yeah, Power BI service is paid. Okay, Shiva, your question is how many rows of data? Good question. So like I said, the capacity of Power BI desktop is 1 gigabytes. Okay, so if you have, I mean, 1 gigabytes can handle many millions of rows, depending on how big the table is. Okay, so there's no exact number, but I mean, it can handle like quite a big amount of data. Okay. So once you have your data, okay, you can shape it in the format and structure you want. You can actually remove the rows. You can rename your tables and columns. You can change a data type, like I was saying. You can actually create relationships. Now, what are relationships between tables? Does anyone know what is relationship between tables? One to one, one to many. Yes, very good. So I'll again show it to you tomorrow in Power BI. Relationship is nothing but how is the data between two tables linked together. Okay, there's something, I mean, if you guys have studied SQL, then you might know it very, very well. But for people who haven't, it's something like there are two tables. Let's say one is your customer table and one is your sales table. In your sales table, there'll be a column which will connect to a customer table. Maybe it's a customer ID or customer unique number or whatever it is. But when you are playing with data in Power BI, or in fact in any kind of, even in Excel or whatever, when you're building reports in Power BI, you should always see whether the tables are connecting together or not. Because typically in a database, when you pull data from a database, the connections are already there. You have primary key, foreign keys, and all of that already there in the database. So once you pull it in Power BI, Power BI will automatically make those connections for you. Now, it does this automatically based on the names of the column. Okay, it doesn't go to SQL Server and sees that there's a primary key, foreign key over there. It does this solely based on the column names. It sees that, okay, table A has column name, column 1, table B also has column 1, the names are similar, probably there's a relationship between them, and automatically it will create a relationship between those two tables. Okay, so that is what a relationship means. Then you can pivot tables, you can modify a name, you can fix errors if there are any errors in the data, you can combine tables, you can merge tables. Again, this is something which people who have familiar with SQL would know. Like you can actually write inner join, outer join, those kind of queries to basically connect data together, okay, or merge tables together. All right. Sawmill, what your question is, can we remove those relationship if they are different data type, but column name is same? Remove, or do you mean to say add? Oh, okay. You're saying if Power BI connects it. Yeah, you can remove it. I'll show it tomorrow. You can actually edit all the relationships you want. You can create new, you can manage relationships, whatever the way you want it. Okay. Chiranjeevi, yeah, that's called as Power Query. Yep. I think you already know Power BI. So now this is very important table, which you need to understand. There are three modes in Power BI on how you can connect to your data. Okay. First is your import mode. This is the most standard mode, which a lot of people use. Okay. Import, and the way you use in Power BI desktop is again same import mode only. So import mode means you connect to your data and Power BI will extract that data from there. It will transform it if you have transformed it anyway, and then it will load it. And that is why this ETL, for many people, you might have heard this term. ETL is nothing but extract, transform, load. Okay. So when you're connecting it to an Excel, okay, or a SQL server or whatever, import mode is the default one. Okay. You connect to the data, you do the transformations or whatever you want, and then Power BI will load all the data in its own memory. So right now, our free Power BI desktop gives us access to 1 GB of memory. Okay. Premium and all that go up to 100, 20, I mean, whatever capacity you want to, it goes up to 100 GB also. Okay. So that is for if you're playing with much, much larger tables and larger data. Okay. But the main thing in import is that it downloads the data from the source, okay, into its own memory. All right. Now, the connectors which you saw, all the different 100 plus connectors which you saw, use that import mode for connecting. So Power BI will connect and extract the data and load it in its own memory, and then you can build reports out of it. Okay. So you can connect as many data sources in one report as you want. You can do a lot of merging, joining of tables. You can even write queries. You can create relationship. You can create measures, new columns, hierarchies, etc., etc. Okay. The second mode is your direct query. Okay. Direct query is a very specific type of mode which only works on these databases. Okay. SQL Server, Azure SQL Warehouse and Database, SAP HANA, Oracle and Teradata. Okay. I think they added a couple of more later on, but these are the primary types of databases where direct query works. Now, what is a direct query? In direct query, Power BI does not download the data in its memory. It's like a direct connection with the database. Okay. Whereas in import, it will first extract and download it in the memory. Direct query is, it will not download, it will just make a connection to that data source. All right. Now, can you think of why somebody would do a direct query and somebody would do an import? What could be the reason? Why are there these two modes differently available? Memory, good. Storage problem, organization policy, very good. That's a very good answer. So typically, when you're playing with small amount of data, okay, it is better to just import it and use it in directly in Power BI. Okay. If it's like a 1 GB or 2 GB of data and you are, you have to build smaller reports, make your reports faster, and you know that reports are not going to change. Like, let's say you're building a monthly report. Monthly report will only change at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, right? So at that time, you can just refresh the data, get the new data in and create the report. Now think about a report which you are making it every 5 minutes, right? So every 5 minutes, you'll have to pull the information from the database if you're using an import type of mode and refresh it in Power BI, then create the report and do everything else. That will take a lot of time because import is fast, but depending on
how much your performance capability is, how much your hardware is, it might slow down if you're doing it every 5 minutes, right? The good part about direct query is it's not pulling the data into Power BI first. Whatever it's doing is just pulling directly and sending it to the visualization. So it makes it much more faster. If you have reports which get refreshed very quickly, like 5-10 minutes, and the data and the amount of data is very huge, like it may be in petabytes or terabytes, which Power BI cannot even handle. In that case, direct query is best. Okay. So like Sridhar, you're asking if it's more than 1 GB. 1 GB is our Power BI desktop size. I mean, when you use in organizations, is actually more than that. You can have 50 GB and 100 GB sizes also. But if your data is much more larger than that, like it's in terabytes, then what would you do? If it's like 500 gigs or 1000 gigs or whatever, then what would you do? Direct query is the way to do that. Okay. So I hope you got the difference between import and direct query. All right. And third is your live connection. Now, live connection, to be honest, I have never seen work very well in Power BI or any tool till now. I mean, Tableau or whatever you take. Live connection means when you want the data to be refreshed instantly as it changes. Can you tell me an example of what could be a live data refresh? Or what could be a live data which you would like to see? Very good. Social media. Weather, maybe not so live. Share price, very good. Stock market, yep, very good. Okay. Currency, yeah, like currency changes, forex and all that. So stocks, currency, all of these are your live data which changes every second, right? Cricket match, yes, kind of. I mean, it still has some you know, intervals in between, but yes, it's still a live data. Okay. So where you want to refresh your visualizations at every maybe 5 seconds or 10 seconds of intervals, there you use a live connection. Okay. Now, live connections only supported with SQL Server analysis services. So first you have to have a SQL Server analysis services running in cloud or somewhere on your on-premise servers. Okay. You need to pull all the live data into the Server analysis service. And from the SQL Server analysis service, you'll connect to Power BI to pull that data in. Okay. So this is why I said that live connection, I have not seen typically work very well. Okay. The live databases or the live graphs which you see for share price and stock market, cricket and all that are all created in different applications like Node or there is some app development language behind it. Okay. It's never done in Power BI or Tableau or anything. Okay. Because live connection takes up a lot of resources, right? And it is not, like I said, I mean, like you can see, only you can connect it only one thing in the Power BI. Okay. So whereas if you are building an application in Python or Java, JavaScript or Node or Angular or whatever, those things work very well with live connections because it's a development language. It works very fast with databases. So you can actually, so all those dashboards that you see live are typically made in those, some software development language. Okay. So these are the three different connections which you should, I mean, which you should know. Um, Probably if you're giving an interview, like this can be asked. This is a very typical interview question of like how, what would you ideally do? Like if it's a use case, they'll give you a use case and ask you, what is the ideal connection you would make over here and why? Okay, so these are like all the things which you need to remember. All right. So there are continuous like I said, I mean, these are the three things you need to remember in Power BI. Okay. The three different kind of connections, and over time Microsoft is using, I mean, they're doing continuous updates and innovations of bringing more and more different kind of, you know, things, data connectivities and all of that uh, into. So every month or so, you'll, if you're using Power, if you're a Power BI user, every month or so you'll see that something new has come up. Okay, so they're constantly updating it. Now let's quickly talk about Power BI service. So like I said, it's a cloud-based solution, and you can Power BI service. You don't need to have basically a Power BI desktop essentially. You can use Power BI service to build reports, dashboards, etc., etc. You can publish reports over there. You can give access to users over there. Okay, you can do many different things. It's something which is on the cloud, just like you use Amazon services, AWS or Azure services. Power BI services is Power BI in the cloud. That's all. Okay, but obviously it's a paid service. It's not a free service. So typically organizations use Power BI service for publishing reports, and you won't see a Power BI desktop in an organization. It will typically be a Power BI service. Okay. So again, it does all the same things which Power BI does and little Power BI desktop does, plus much more, like publishing reports and creating dashboards, etc. Connects to all different data sources. It has, I mean, you can actually have authentication for accessing, okay, for users and all that. So this is what centralized data access means. There'll be like a centralized data access. Not everybody can just come and access your Power BI service. It'll be all based on your organizational policies and how the users are credentialed and all that. Okay. This is where you create your dashboards. Okay, this is where you create your dashboards. You put all your important KPIs or links, or other different reports. So all of this which you see in this small screen over here, all of these are different reports. Okay, integrated into one common dashboard. All right. So in one dashboard, without going to specific reports, I can see all the major things which are happening over here. Okay. So this is how a dashboard looks like. And of course, you can generate insights and all that. Of course, that's what Power BI does. Now, Power BI service has another great feature. And I think because Microsoft has already collaborated with OpenAI for developing ChatGPT, so Power BI service has something like a Q&A, where you can actually write English type, just like you type in ChatGPT. You can actually ask questions in Power BI. Okay, you can ask questions in Power BI, just like you would do in a ChatGPT. All right. So that is you can write now. Like I said, because Microsoft has now collaborated with OpenAI, the Q&A section has become much more better. So it will develop over time, and where you can actually, just like you talk to a chat GPT or you write questions on a chat GPT, you'll be able to write questions in Power BI report as well. Okay. And you can of course share your work and collaborate with other people and so on. Okay. You can stay connected with any device you want to. All right. And you can get the benefit of all Power BI report. Quickly, Power BI Premium, I think we already talked about. It just gives you some extra hardware capability that Power BI is. So let's say you're you're in a very large organization, then, and you want dedicated for, let's say, one team or one project, you want a dedicated capacity, you can actually request specific hardware for that project itself. Okay, so all other projects will be shared in a common memory, but if you want dedicated memory, then Power BI Premium lets you provide that, obviously at additional cost. Okay, so that's the benefit of Power BI Premium. And of course, you can distribute content to all users depending on their service users, pro or basic and so on. And finally, some administration in Power BI. Again, this is not typically what we would do, but more of administrators, where you can maintain users, you can actually look at audit logs and all the behind the scenes working of Power BI, who has logged in, who has made what change, how many users are there, how many reports are generated, so on, so on, so on. Okay. So this is a brief idea about Power BI. Now, tomorrow we are going to do a practical session. Okay. Tomorrow we'll do hands-on exercise. Again, very basic ones. There are a lot of other complex things like DAX queries and all that. We'll not go through that, because that is, I mean, that takes obviously 4 or 5 more hours to do it. But tomorrow I'll show you how to create basic reports, how to connect to a data in Excel and create like a 2-3 kinds of different reports. I'll show you some sample reports also. Okay. And if you haven't downloaded Power BI desktop, please do. Okay. So that you can also play around as we are talking tomorrow. side by side. So what I'll be doing is I'll be just walking you through creating a nice report in Power BI. Okay. And show you a couple of things which you can do in Power BI. Of course, like it's just a 2-hour class. So I'll try to cover most of the things what you can do. And again, like I said, later on, you can probably deep dive into by either like, enrolling up into one of the courses or, studying for it with yourself. So, okay, let's open Power BI. So I have Power BI installed in my virtual machine. So I'll open that. Okay, so this is how a Power BI screen looks like. Okay, the first time you open it, this is how it looks like. So this is your Power BI desktop, which, like I said, it's a free software which you can use. Don't have to pay lifetime. You can keep on creating reports and using them. So the first thing which see over here is how you connect to a data source, right? Because obviously the first thing which you would do in Power BI is connect to a data source to get the data. Okay, so we are going to be using one Excel data source over here. Okay, I will also send that Excel sheet to you guys. Okay, so for getting a connection or connecting to any data set which you have, it could be an SQL server or Amazon Redshift or whatever. You hover over this tab called Get Data. Okay, if you see it over here, now there's already a Excel workbook made for you. Okay, so you can click on that, or you can click over here to get data. Okay, so if you click on Get Data, then you will see all these data sets. Okay, you'll see all of these data sets over here, right? So now, yesterday, if you remember, we talked about what are the different data sources. There are almost 100 plus data sources. So if you click on this Get Data, you will see all of the commonly used data sets over here. Okay, so we are going to connect to an Excel sheet. I am going to click Excel workbook over here. Okay, and then I have this AdventureWorks sales Excel sheet downloaded with me. I can connect and click open. Now, if you remember yesterday, we saw 3 different type of connections which Power BI does. I don't know if anyone of you remembers that, but one was import. Okay, one was direct query, and one was live connection, right? In most of the data sources, you typically use your import query. Okay, what import query does is it loads the data into the Power BI memory. It loads the data in the Power BI memory, and it basically uses the Power BI application memory in it. All right. So these are all the Excel sheets which you see over here. Okay. Yeah. Atkur, I'm going to send that data set over to you. Okay. Everyone will have access to the data set, so you can actually practice it while, after this class. So now these are all the sheets in that Excel file. Okay, I think everyone has seen an Excel file. You have different sheets in it. These are all the sheets which are already there. Okay, these are just basically tables. Now I am going to select some of these tables. Okay, I don't want all of these. Okay, they are basically duplicates of what I'm selecting. So I'm just only worried about these 7 tables which I'm going to take. Okay, as soon as I select them, you'll basically start seeing, like a preview of what table I'm going to load. And you will see 3 options over here. Cancel, just leave it out. Load and transform data. If I click on load, immediately all these tables will be loaded into the Power BI memory. Okay. If I click on transform data, which is what I'm going to do, then Power BI gives you the option of changing or editing your data set. If you remember yesterday, we saw one of the slides where we saw that we could actually do a lot of data manipulation before you actually load the data in Power BI. This is what we are going to do over here. Okay. So this is the part where we are now going to prepare our data, okay, the way we want to. So as Sridhar also mentioned in the chat right now, this opens up a window called as Power Query. Okay, this is the Power Query editor. I mean, it's just a name. So Power BI, Power Query, I think they named it just to keep consistent. So there's a Power Query editor where you can actually transform your data. Okay, you can load and do a lot of things over here. All right, you can transform your data over here. Now, there are many things you can do for transformation. You can actually remove columns entirely. You can remove rows. You can remove duplicates, just like whatever operations you would do in an Excel sheet, you can do it over here. Okay. Now, there is one thing which you see over here in the transform tab, which is called as detect data type. Okay, this one. Now, typically what happens is once you load all the data or all the sheets into the table or into Power BI, automatically Power BI recognizes most of the columns, like what data type is present in that column. In case it doesn't, you can actually click this detect data type. Okay. What Power BI will do is it will try internally again, run the queries behind the scenes, and it will detect what data type is present in this, all the tables which we have imported. Okay. So uh, you can actually go to each table and see what the data type is. Okay. So for example, if you see if I click on customer table, okay, you can actually see the data type for each column in particular. So this is like a representation. 1, 2, 3 means it's a whole number. ABC means it's a character. If I right click this and if I do change type, okay, if you click on change type, you'll see what is the data type currently for that column. So this is a whole number, right? If I want to, I can make it a text. I can make it, I mean, of course, these don't make sense, like percentage and decimal numbers, because those are not actually decimal numbers. So instead, I'll just keep it whole number. I mean, Power BI has already identified that it's a whole number. Okay, this is a text because it has multiple text fields in it. So I can, if you look at this, if I right click and if I go to change data type, then you see it's a text field. Okay, so Power BI is pretty good in identifying what data type is present in all of those different areas. Okay, now, I mean, we are not doing any major transformation over here, but I just wanted to show you this Power Query editor, which where you can actually do a lot of data transformations. Okay, so whatever data transformations you do over here will not be affected in your actual original data source, which is your Excel sheet. Okay, everything is happening within Power BI memory space. All right, so I think so we're not changing anything, right? Over here all data is fine, there's no error and all that. So let's just click on close and apply. Okay, so if you see this icon over here, I'm going to click close and apply, and now my data is transformed. Okay, now it will do the load process. So if you remember extract, transform, load, the ETL process, which we talked about yesterday. So extract means we just connected it to an Excel source. It extracted the data. We did some transformation, which is that T part. And then we are doing the load, which is that L part. Okay. So now the data is actually coming into Power BI. It's actually now coming into Power BI memory. Okay. Now Power BI has loaded the data. Okay. I can now go to this model view over here. And here is where I'll see the data model. Okay. What is a data model? Does anyone know? What does this represent? Any idea, anyone? For somebody who has done SQL or very good relationships, right? So it shows you the relationship between different tables. Okay. Now, a very important thing to note here is that this data is taken from Excel. Okay. Excel does not have capabilities of creating primary key, foreign key, and all of that. Good stuff which SQL Server can do, or IBM DB2 or Oracle, those databases. can do. Excel doesn't have that capability, right? Even when you load data from an SQL server, I mean from Power BI, Power BI doesn't fetch the information that what is a primary key, what is a foreign key for this table, and so on, so on. Okay, it is just going to pull that information. And now what Power BI does is it actually looks at each table and it looks at each column name. Okay, wherever it sees that the column names match for two tables, it actually creates a relationship automatically between them. Okay, so if you look at sales order and sales table, right, there is a common key, there's a common field. If I click on this, called the sales order line key. So there's a sales order line key in this table. Okay, it's highlighted over here in the sales table. There's a sales order line key in the sales order table. Okay, so Power BI found this out and automatically it actually joined these tables on its own. Okay, now there's one more thing which you see over here, which shows 1 and 1. Does anyone know what that means? What is this 1 and 1? What could be this 1 and 1? It's a one-to-one relation. Very good. So one-to-one relation means that there is one row in sales order corresponding to only one row in sales. Okay. Now, whereas if you look at this product table and sales table, the column which is common to both is product key. Okay. So again, Power BI has figured out that this is the same column name and it has joined these two tables together. Now here the relationship is one to many, because one over here and star over here. Star means many. One to many means there is only one row for this product key in this product table, and there are multiple rows for the same product key in the sales table. Okay, that is what one to many means. So in case you want to look at the relationship or you want to edit this relationship, let's say Power BI did not create a relationship properly. Okay, and I want to edit this relationship and I want to make it something else. So I can right click on this arrow thing, and I can go to properties. And here I can see the relationship which has been created. Okay. So here, in fact, I can actually change any table, select any table over here and manage any relationship. Okay. It's not just that this has opened up a edit relationship window where I can manage any kind of relationship. Okay. So here, if you see, I can select any column and match it with any column over here. But obviously, I mean, just in case Power BI probably did it wrong. Okay, in case I did not want to join the product key to the product key here, maybe I wanted to join the product key with something else. Okay, maybe there was some other column which I wanted to join. So I can change that over here. Okay, otherwise, I mean, this relationship is fine right now. So we are not going to change that. This you can see it's many to one. Okay, so you can actually do this change also. But I mean, if there is not a relationship which is, I mean, this cannot be changed to many because Power BI will not find duplicate rows over here. So it is actually many to one, which is fine. Okay. Ashutosh is asking, what do we do in case of many to many relationship? How do we fix that? What do you mean fix? What do you mean by fix relationship? Fix that relationship? I mean, if there is a many to many, then it's a many to many, right? Why would you want to change that? I mean, your table or data is designed in such a way that there's a many to many relationship, right? So you will probably have to use that. It may show error. Not sure what you mean. I don't think it will show error. Okay, so try that out. I don't think it will give you any problem. Okay, if it's a many to many also. All right, so all the tables are basically joined to this sales table. Okay, now this day, I mean, you can imagine looking at just the table names that this is some kind of sales data. Okay, of some customers buying some products and all that. Okay. Lakshmi, you're asking there'll be some cases where we want one-to-one relation instead of one-to-many. So the thing is that you cannot forcefully change relationships, right? Because then your visualizations will be impacted. Because if there is a one-to-one relationship or if there's a one-to-many relationship, that means the data is made such a way. If you change that to one-to-one, imagine, so here's a scenario. I want to see for this, let's say Amazon data set, and I want to see that how many people got bought the PlayStation 5 in last month. Okay. Now the sales table has all the PlayStation 5s which were sold in last one. Okay. This product table has only one row which says PlayStation 5. Okay. Because there is only one PlayStation 5, right? The product which exists in Amazon's catalog is only one PlayStation 5. But when it's selling those PlayStation 5s, it's going to record the order date, who bought it, whether it was shipped or not, which country did it ship to, city, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So sales table will definitely have multiple rows where there will be PS5 present. Okay. So if you make a one-to-one relationship over here, if you forcefully make this a one-to-one relationship, first of all, it will show you an error. Second of all, imagine now I want to see last month how many PS5 were sold. Okay. So what I'll do on the sales table is I will select a date. I will group all the monthly data and I'll select PS5. But if I have a one-to-one relationship, then it will show me just one PlayStation which has been sold because it's actually making a relationship from over here, which is wrong, right? So don't forcefully change relationships unless I mean, you know that you can change the source data and then you can do it. Okay, keep the relationships as they are. Okay. Yeah, duplicate values is fine. I mean, again, if that duplicate value is not serving any purpose, right, then you can actually remove the duplicate values and make a one-to-one. Okay. But in sales table, if you remove the duplicate values, then see what's going to happen. You'll delete all the sales data, right? Okay. So coming back to this data model, okay, and as Mohit pointed out, uh, this is actually called a uh, this is called actually a database schema. Okay. And specifically this type of schema is called as a star schema. Okay. There are typically two schemas which we use in data model. One is star schema, one is snowflake. Star schema is very popular, okay, to use. Why do we call it star schema? Because if you see, like, there is a table in the middle and there are all these tables which are extending out of it. So it's kind of like a star. Okay. It's kind of like a star which is over here. Okay. It's a very, very typical star schema which you will find in many databases. Now, one more thing to note over here, all these tables which are on the outside of the star in the middle, which is this sales, these are called as dimension tables. Okay. And the table in between, which is collecting information from all of these different tables and making it together, is called as a fact table. So fact and dimension. Okay. These are the two tables which are used, or we call them fact and dimension. Okay. Dimension table is something which doesn't change a lot over time. Okay. For example, think of it as customer. So when you register at Amazon, you're going to record your details, make the payment method and all of that stuff. But that information is going to change uh, once in like 5 years, right? You're not going to change your shipping information until you're, like, leaving the house or going somewhere else. So that information will stay permanent for a long time. Similarly, like product, you will add a product. I mean, Amazon will add a product and that information will stay consistent for a long time. Okay. Nothing's going to change in that. But sales table is something which is being updated every second. Okay. Every second, thousands of people are buying some products and that information goes into sales table. So sales table is getting updated every second. Hence, those kind of tables are called as fact tables. Okay. Fact is like what is happening around me, like the fact. That is why it's called as fact. Okay. So this is a typical star schema with your fact and dimension tables. So yeah, schemas, again, not going into too deep into it because that's a more database kind of topic. Schemas is nothing but a data model which shows you the relationship between the different tables. Okay. So there are two types of schema. One is snowflake, one is star. Star is a very commonly used schema. I mean, we call it star because if you see in the diagram, there's one center table and there are these extended tables around it. So in the shape of a star, right? Snowflake schema is kind of a star schema connected together in like a chain. So like a snowflake connects together with all the snowflakes. That is how uh, this snowflake schema is there. So you can actually read about it on Google. And I mean, if you're interested, okay, we are not going to do those activities over here. Okay. All right. So now, like I said, Power BI will make all the relationships automatically over here, depending on the column name and all that. Okay. Now there is one table which is not connected. Why could that be? Why could that be? Yeah, Power BI is not able to find any common column from this table and any other table. Okay, so there is nothing which it is able to find. Okay, now here is where we can actually go ahead and make relationships on our own. Okay, now this date column has, okay, this date column has this date key. Okay, this date column has a date key. Now I want to connect this date key to some of the columns over here. Okay, now which is probably the most important date column in sales, which you think like logically which is the most important one? Order. Very good. Okay, so there's an order date key over here. Okay, which is which is nothing but a date. Okay, so what I can do is I can drag this date key and just superimpose it on the order date key. And now immediately Power BI made a connection. It also found that there is one row in date key which is which has multiple rows in sales by according to this column. So immediately it made a one-to-one, one-to-many relationship. Okay, cool. Now what I can also do is I can make multiple relationships with the same column. So the other thing which I can do is I can take this date key and also make a relationship with ship date key. Okay, I can also take this date key and make a relationship with due date key. So this is something called as making multiple relationships between the table. Now, a very important point to note over here, and if you can see also that only the first connection which I did has a solid line, the others have a dotted line. This means that only the solid line connection will be active. Okay, only this connection is going to be active, whereas the other two will be non-active. Okay, if I want to make them active, I can right click it and I can make this relationship active over here by clicking this. All right. So this is how you can actually manage multiple relationships with the same column. All right. Everyone with me? Okay. Nice. Uh, Now we'll do a couple of more things. Okay. One thing what you can do is you can actually go and hide some columns which are typically which you would not need in Power BI visualization. So for example, if I go to customer, okay, uh, Nisha, sorry, I mean, I think we covered a lot of them. So is there any specific thing which you want me to repeat? Nisha, is there any specific thing you want me to repeat or? Active means that is the relationship which Power BI is going to take when it's built, when you're building visualizations. Okay, it will not consider the other two relationships at that time. That is what active means. Okay, we have just made a connection, but that the if you are working with visualizations on both of these tables, then Power BI is only going to take into account that particular active relationship. Okay, that is what it means. So now there are a couple of columns over here which we actually don't need when we are doing visualizations, right? I mean, a very good example is this customer key. Customer key is nothing but an identification number. Okay, so it's like a unique number assigned to a customer. It doesn't tell you anything about the customer, right? I mean, there's no information. It's just like a unique number, like an employee ID, or if you are a student, then your college ID or something, your student ID, which is assigned to you. So it doesn't really mean anything in terms of visualization, right? So what I can do is the columns which I don't want to see and avoid unnecessary clutter in my visualization, I can actually click this icon over here and I can hide that column. Okay, so now this column is hidden during my visualization. So in my customer, I can hide the customer key. In my date, I can hide the date key maybe. Okay, I can also probably hide the month key. Okay, so those two keys I can, like, get rid of. Maybe in product, I can get rid of the product key. In reseller, I can get rid of the reseller key, because these are all the keys which are we anyway using for connections, right? So we are not going to do anything with them. Okay, it's just there for reference purposes and managing connections. We're not never going to use them in visualization. Okay, so here I can remove all of these: due date, order date, product key, reseller key, sales order line key, sales territory key. I mean, there are quite a few because this table is connected to almost everything. Okay, and maybe ship date key also. All right, then within sales order, I can actually remove this, and in sales territory, I can remove this. Okay, so now just for making our job a little easier, we have just removed these keys. Okay, now the another thing when you are creating visualizations, okay, is that you want to create some hierarchies. Okay, you want to create some hierarchies. I'll show you when we do visualization how that hierarchy helps. But hierarchy is nothing but sort of like a top to bottom level of categories, okay, which are linked together in some sort of order. All right, so for example, hierarchy in your company or in your college or school, like there's a CEO on top, then you have maybe the CFO and the CMO, then you have your senior VPs, then VPs, then directors, team leads, project managers, software engineers, and so on, so on. Okay, that's like a hierarchy of an organization. Now, over here in Power BI, you can actually create hierarchies for different columns. Okay, how you can do that is, let's go to first customer table. Okay, now in customer table, what do you think are the columns which are sort of in a order, or like this is a top, then there's something below it, then something below it? Can you see any columns which could be like in a hierarchy over here? Can you think about it? Very good, Ankit. Country, state, post, excellent. Postal code, right? City, very good. So what is the hierarchy? Basically, you a region, then a country, then I mean region or country region, whatever. I think this country region was one column. So country region, then state, then city, then postal code, and finally you're right, address, but here we don't have address. So maybe the customer. Okay, customer also we can put, because let's say in my visualization, I want to see that in my postal code, in my 411030 postal code, how many customers are there. So if I want to drill down to that level, then I need to have that hierarchy, right? So how to create that? I can actually go to the top column. Okay, I can click right and I can do create hierarchy. Okay, now if you see on the properties tab over here, this has actually created a hierarchy for me. Okay, I can name this hierarchy maybe geography. Okay, I can put some description over here, and now I can add columns to this hierarchy from this menu. So within country region, I can now add state, then I can add city, then I can add postal code, and then finally I can add a customer. Okay, now you can move these up and down if you just have to you know, sort of make the changes of the hierarchy. Okay, but yeah, this is what your hierarchy needs to be created. Okay, and then you can click apply level changes. So then it has now created the hierarchy within this. So here's the hierarchy. If I click on this, then it shows you what the hierarchy is. Okay, everyone understood this? Everyone got the point of creating a hierarchy? Let's go to date table. Okay, in my date table, what can I do? I mean, typically in my date table, I would like to use the year, quarter, month, that kind of, you know, thing. So maybe I'll go to fiscal year. I'll create hierarchy over here. Okay, and maybe call this fiscal year. Let's say remove that hierarchy thing. Okay, and under fiscal year, I can add fiscal years already. I can call it fiscal. Okay, so under this now I can add fiscal quarter. Okay, I can under quarter I can add month. Okay, under month I can add date. So this is a hierarchy I can create over here. Vaidehi, what do you want me to repeat? Sorry, is there anything? Hierarchy key part. Okay. Uh, okay, so okay, fine. Let's create another hierarchy. Let's go to product. Okay. So now, I hope you understood what we are doing, right? You understand the purpose of creating a hierarchy, right? How you do that is, let's say, I mean, you can click on any column and just right click it and say create hierarchy. Doesn't matter. Okay. And then you can rearrange all the columns over here also. Okay, but a better way to do this is that start with the topmost column. Okay, so in product, my topmost column, let's say, is category. I right click it and I can say create hierarchy. Okay, over here in the properties panel on the left, immediately it opens up the hierarchy panel. Okay, so I can say call this, let's say, category. Okay, or let's call this product, since it's a product. Call this products. Okay, now under over here in the hierarchy, which you see over here, I can add all the columns from top to bottom. Okay, depending on what I need to see. So on the products, under category, I can add uh, product. Okay, or sorry, I can also add subcategory. Okay, and then I can add maybe model as well. Now subcategory should be above, should be just below category. So I'm going to move this around. And this is the hierarchy which I want to see. Category, subcategory, product, model, and then I click on this apply level changes. It's going to internally create this hierarchy for me. Okay, if you expand this up, you can see this. Okay, the hierarchy which is being created. All right, then I can go to reseller. Okay, anything you can see, I mean, anything you see in reseller which you can do it as a hierarchy. Anything you see over here which you can create as a hierarchy. Same like customer, right? So Rehan, your question is, why do we create hierarchy? So we create hierarchy for drilling down the data. Okay, so imagine, let's say I want to see where in which country are my maximum sales happening. Okay, so let's say I select India, which is showing me on visualization. Now in India, I want to see which is the state where maximum sales are happening. So what do I have to do? I have to actually go one level down, right? From country, I need to go to the state. So I'll show you that in visualization also. But from country, I need to go to state. So I will drill down and go to all the states. Now in all the states, I will see that, okay, uh, take any state, Karnataka maybe has the highest sales. Okay, I will click on Karnataka. Now I want to see within Karnataka what is the city in which maximum sales are happening. So now I'm going one level again deeper. Okay, so from state I will go to the city. Okay, in city I want to see which postal code is getting me most revenue. So again, one level down from city to postal code. Okay, and within postal code I want to see, okay, how many customers are there. So from postal code, now I can go to customer also, one level down, and see all the customers. Now, very important thing to note over here is that your data should be in such a way that you can create a hierarchy. Like, it cannot happen that if there is no postal code for a customer, you cannot create a hierarchy from postal code to customer, right? Because if no customer has a postal code, then I mean, that information in the table is not I mean, it's half information, right? It's not complete. So Power BI will not be able to drill down from postal code to customer because there's no link to it, right? So that is what this means. That is what we create the hierarchy for. Okay. In visualization, you can apply this. Yes, you can apply this in visualization also, but it's always better to do it over here so that you already have all the hierarchies created. So once you start dragging and dropping fields into visualization, you can just drag and drop the hierarchy itself and then remove the columns if you don't want to. So that's always a good practice to do it this way. Okay. Everybody with me till now? Everybody with me till now? Cool. Uh, yeah, we were going to create reseller. Yeah, so let's click this. Let's also call this geography, just like we did in customer. Okay. And again, in the country region, for reseller, we can add maybe, what is there? Country region. Country region is already added. Now we add the state. We add the city. We add postal code is there. Yep, we can do that. And then the reseller, just like customer, we can create a reseller hierarchy also. Okay. Now sales is a fact table. Okay, typically in fact tables we do not create hierarchies. Okay, unless you really want to, because fact table is collecting data from all different tables. Okay, so you don't basically create hierarchy over there, you just leave it typically as it is. Okay. Yes, Vedant, you have to create a hierarchy for each table manually. Okay, that is something which, because you are doing it on yourself, I mean, Power BI doesn't know if you want a hierarchy or not. Okay, so, and it also doesn't know like what is the relationship between all the columns, so between a single table. So that's why you need to create that. Now here we can do actually sales order. Okay, and you can actually create sales order and sales order line. Okay, so this is a hierarchy. And finally, in your sales territory, I can create a hierarchy between your group, country, and region. Group is nothing but like a territory which you want to manage in sales. Okay, so you can call this group, and then country, and then region. Okay, so this is how we have now created hierarchies. So now if you go to your data model over here, okay, this is how eventually it will look like. Sales table has no hierarchy. Like I said, you don't need to create hierarchy over there because it's a fact table. Fact table has all the data coming in from different tables. So typically you create hierarchies in the dimension tables only. Okay, you don't create anything in the fact tables. So you have created in dimension table. I think that's fine. So you can work with it. Okay. Somebody said DAX queries. So DAX query, good point. So DAX query is a more complex, you can say, area of Power BI. Okay, we'll talk about DAX queries after we do this visualization. Okay, but DAX query is something which is like a whole different topic. It will take maybe 4 or 5 hours to go through the entire thing. All right. So, but DAX query is data analysis expressions. Okay. DAX queries are something which you can write. It's like a code or something you write in SQL, very typical, similar to that, where you can actually do calculations, some complex calculations with all the columns, which you cannot do directly and all of that. Okay, those things you can do in a DAX query. Okay, let me show you actually one example of how to do that. By the way, one, so I hope till here everyone's understood. Okay, now I'm going to go to the sales table. Okay, now DAX formula language or data analysis expressions, it's called. It's a very powerful tool for data modeling. Okay, there is a whole documentation available on Power BI website where you can go and look at the how you can write DAX queries. Okay, let me show you like a very basic thing to do over here. Okay, so let's select the sales table. Okay, on the home table, I'm going to home tab. I'm going to click new measure. Okay, now it immediately opens up a properties window for me. Okay, now I'm going to use this measure to calculate the total sales amount by due date on the sales order instead of the order date. Okay, so let's say I want to do something like this. Instead of the sales order, I want to, oops, where's my measure? We click that again. Yeah. So instead of calculating, one second. It's actually making disappear for some reason. Okay, I hope it stays. Now, instead of calculating it for a typical by order date or something, I want to actually create a measure to calculate the total sales by due date. Okay, on each sales order instead of the order date. Okay, instead of order date, I want to create something like this. So what I can do is I can create this measure over here. Okay, and I can actually write a DAX expression over here. Okay, let's name this measure as sales. If you see on the top ribbon, I mean, if you see my cursor over here, that's where I'm writing the DAX query. So let's call this measure sales amount by date. Okay, by, let's call it due date, make it more better. Okay, now I'm going to use something called as calculate. So if you see, as soon as I started writing this function, okay, just like in Excel, it starts auto filling it. Okay, just so you know that these are all the functions available. Okay, so calculate is the function I want to use. Okay, now there are many different functions in Power BI. Again, we cannot go through all of them in this one class, but you can look it up in the documentation and You'll see what those functions do. So calculate, just like the name sounds, is actually calculate some mathematical expression. Okay. So I'm going to write calculate. And what do I need to do? What is my problem? I need to get the total sales amount. Okay. So when I say total sales amount, what does that mean? When I say total sales amount, what does that mean? What do you mean by total? What is the mathematical sum? Very good, Aditya. Okay. I need to do sum. Okay. So I will say sum, just like I say in Excel. Okay. And then what do I need to sum? I need to sum the sales amount. Where is the sales amount? In which table is the sales amount? In which table is the sales amount? Sales. Very good, Abhishek. Okay. So if you see immediately when I said sum and I put a bracket, I can see all the tables listed immediately by default. Okay. Now when I start typing this, now Power BI just shows you the list of all the sales columns in the sales table. So I'll go to just sales amount and I'll select sales amount. Okay. Now here is something extra which you can do in DAX. I'm going to use, so I'll just close this bracket. Okay. This is what I'm going to sum over here. Now I'm going to use something called as user relationship. Okay. This is now a special command and in DAX, which you can use. Okay. User relationship. What does it say? If you can see it on the description above, it specifies an existing relationship to be used in the evaluation of DAX in place of some other relation. Okay. So right now our relation is what? What is our relation in between the sales and the date table? What is the relationship we have created between the sales and the date table? Right, but we have created an order date, if you remember, right? We have created the date key and the order date key, right? That is the relationship over there. Now over here in my user relationship, that is the active relationship with order one. Okay. Now in my user relationship, I can say that instead of doing it on order, which is by default, because that's the active connection, that's the active relationship which is there between sales and date. So instead of doing it on that, you do it on due date key. So I'll select sales due date key. Okay. And I will select the date key because this relationship we have already formed. And this is my DAX query completed. Okay. And I can now check mark this and commit this so that it will create a separate measure within the sales table for me. Okay. Now measure is something which is calculated on real time. So as soon as I use a measure in Power BI report, it's going to calculate it at that time and then show me the value. Unlike all the columns which already have some values. Okay. So measure is a special, you can say, variable which gets calculated on runtime when we create a report. Okay. So this is one small example which I showed for a DAX query. Okay. That what you can do. There are many different things you can do in DAX queries. It's a very, very powerful tool to use in Power BI. And if you see production reports, like if you work on Power BI later on, most of the time you will be using the DAX queries, okay, to build these special measures and all that. We are doing like a sample report, which has, 5, 6 tables only. But when you will be working in real life data in any company or any, production scenario, you will be working with hundreds of different tables. Okay. So the table's name would also not be very easy like these sales, product and all that. The table's names will be very complicated. So you basically need to know the entire documentation of your database. You need to have a database expert who can actually talk about all the tables and tell you the relationships between them and all that. So that you can create the same relationships in Power BI. Okay. Here, because this is sample data, it's very simple. Then column names are same and all that. But in real life, the data doesn't look like this. Okay. It's not so easy to decipher. So in that cases, you actually use a lot of these measures. Okay. So you create a lot of these DAX queries with measures and all that to actually simplify your work. Okay. So now we are done with this. Now let's start building a report. Okay, so now we can go to this report view. Gopinath, what is your question for data visualization as data is important? Yes, absolutely. I mean, DAX queries are you should know some level of DAX if you're giving interviews and, going for interviews in Power BI. You should know some amount of DAX for sure. Okay. Maybe not very complex level since you've not worked, but you should definitely know DAX. Okay. Like I said, if you prepare for a Power BI certification, then you will automatically be learning DAX through the different material and tutorials which you have. Okay, now let's come to building a report. Okay, this is the empty panel which it shows to build a report. Okay, now we have modeled our data. It's time to create our own report. Okay, so let's go. We went to the report view. All right, let's add one visual at a time. We'll add a couple of visuals in this report. Now, let's first insert a title. I mean, of course, for any report, the main thing is that you need to have a title for the report, right? So let's insert a title. I went to this insert tab on the top. Okay. And I clicked on text box. So it immediately opens a text box for me. Okay. And within that text box, I can write executive. Oops. Let's keep this at maybe 20 and make it bold. And let's make this 20, make it bold. And I can say maybe something like executive summary. Okay. And something like sales report. Okay. Kavya, what is the question? The text box, are you asking? So text box, you go to insert and you click on this text box over here. Go to the insert tab on the ribbon and you click on the text box over here. That's here how you will get the text box. Okay. Cool. Now, if you see on the format tab on the right, okay, I can do a couple of things like in the effects, I can turn off the background. I mean, let's say I do not want a white background behind. I just want it to be superimposed on the report itself. I can remove this background off. Okay. And I can do a couple of other things like title. If I want to show a different title for this box, then I can do it, or properties. I can maybe position it differently or layer order. And there are many things like how you can actually format this. Okay. So under effects, I turned off the background color, sorry, the background, and I'm done with my creating the title. Okay. So this is a very simple way to, if you want to add a title, to make it to get basically a heading to the report. And I can just resize this to fit it over here so that it doesn't eat up the extra space which is around the report, because I want to create something over there as well. Okay, cool. Now let's put the first chart. Okay, I mean, very simple one. What we can do is we can create a maybe like a line chart. So I click on the line chart over here. If you see on the right, these are all the visuals which are available on, like by default, on the front page. Okay, If you click on this ellipsis, and you can actually get more visuals. Okay. You can also import a visual from a file. So if you have created some visual from in a particular file, you can actually go there and do that as well. All right. So either way, I mean, but these are all the visuals which are available by default on the front page. Okay. You can get more visuals if you click on this button over here. Now, two more, these two things which I talked about yesterday, you can actually write visuals in Python, like Matplotlib and Seaborn, and you can actually get those visuals here. You can also create a visual in R and get those visuals here. Okay. And there are many different ways to do that. Okay. Chiranjeev is saying new version they show on top. Did not get that. Okay. Um, anyway, so I've clicked the line chart. Okay. Now I want to create a report out of this. So I can now go to my data field. Let me just pull this a little bit. I can now go to my data field on the right. Okay. And I can now start pulling these fields over here. Okay. So let's pull in the sales amount from the sales table. Now I'm going to drag the fields from the data column over here. Okay. Now let's say I want to create the sales amount by maybe fiscal year. Okay. So now I'm going to grab this sales amount. Okay. This one. Okay. And I can put it in the report over here. I guess it did not get dragged. Yeah, now it did. So of course, there is only one data field sales amount which I've pulled, right? So that's why it's showing it a dot. It's showing the entire sales amount to me, which is $109 million or whatever. Okay, that is what it's showing. Now, how do I typically want to see a sales amount? By what measure or what trend do I want to see a sales amount typically? If you are a person who's looking at sales, a manager is looking at the sales over time, what would you look at? Time, right? Or month, day, whatever. Okay. So what I can do is like, now I can go to my date table. Okay. And from my fiscal hierarchy, okay, I can drag the month column over there. Why does it not have the month? I think did put I did put this month over. Okay, let's go back to data model. And let's go to date. I had named this fiscal. I think it did not get updated. This is over there. Okay, let's go back. Okay, for some reason it's not updating. Anyway, if it's updated for you guys, that's fine. I think something's wrong with mine. So I can now pull in maybe like fiscal quarter into this panel. So immediately you see automatically Power BI created a line chart for me. Okay, I can convert this line chart to maybe like a column chart, and now it will show me like a every fiscal what is my revenue by all the fiscal quarters. Okay, if you see, I can hover over any pane, any bar, and I can get the actual value which is over there. Okay, easy, right? Make sense? Easy. Now over here in my fiscal, if you see, okay, I can actually remove the quarter. So then it'll only show me by year. Okay. So this is why I was saying hierarchy becomes easy, because if I click on fiscal quarter, immediately I can do it by quarter. Okay. Rashi, is there any question which or anything which you did not understand till now? So did everyone understand what we did in this fiscal in creating this? Okay, very easy report, a simple bar graph. I first selected a visual over here. Okay. Sorry, Radha, your question is like, did you understand or did you not understand? So I selected a visual over here, whatever visual I want, bar graph, line chart, whatever. And then I went to the fields of, let's say I wanted to see the sales amount by date. Okay. So I dragged the sales amount into that visual. All right. And I also dragged the date, or because I had already created a hierarchy, the fiscal year, quarter, whatever from the hierarchy into the graph. Automatically, Power BI created a visual for you. Okay. Now you can change that visual from here. You can make it a line chart, or I can make it like a area chart. Okay. Which looks better. So it shows you again the entire revenue, also shows the trend by each fiscal. And this area chart is very nice to see because it gives you a very nice idea of how much trend, what is the trend going on, plus what is the volume of the revenue which is coming in. Okay. Now, look at this. There are two different axes because this is a two-axis graph. There's a y-axis and the x-axis. You can clearly see that on the x-axis, we have the fiscal quarter or the time period which you have taken. On the y-axis, we have some of the sales amount. Okay. I can now click this and I can maybe make it an average of the sales amount or maximum sales amount or count or standard deviation, variance, median, whatever. Okay. So by default, Power BI will always take the sum of a numerical value. If you don't want that, you can actually go here and you can change the type from here. Yes, Chitra, absolutely. Select a visual, select fields, drag it into it, and do whatever changes you want on this tab over here. Okay. So you can add legend, just like you create a graph in Excel. It's as simple as that. You can add legend and you can do all of that stuff from here itself. Okay. We had created a DAX query measure over here. Let's pull that and let's add it to the y-axis. What do you see? What do you now see? What was the DAX measure? Does anyone remember? Our DAX measure was sales amount by due date instead of order date. Okay. Right now, because our relationship is by default active on order date, that's why all of this information, we are seeing it by order date. Okay. Because that is the default active link or relationship with my date table. Now, because I had created the DAX measure, which was using the relationship of the due date and the date uh, column, or the date table. Once I drag that measure, I can now see that this dark blue line is sales amount by due date, whereas the light blue is sales amount by order date. Okay. So this is a very nice way if I want to like show you, if I want to show somebody that what is the difference between, I mean, by order date, how am I getting the sales, by due date, how am I getting the sales? It's a very nice comparison between both the graphs. And on a single visualization, you can see both of them. Okay. Make sense? Everybody got this part? Any questions here? Okay. Now you can hover over any of these fiscal quarters and it will show you the actual number of both the different values if you really want to see that. Okay, so here I can see what is the exact sales amount and exact sales amount by due date um, on that particular fiscal quarter 2019, first quarter 2019. Okay. If I want to make this a little more contrasting because both are blue, I can go to this format visual. Okay. And in my format visual, I can go to where is it? Lines, lines, lines. Okay. I can actually change the colors of the lines. Okay. So sales amount by due date is blue. Maybe let's make it red so that it actually sticks out better here. So now I can see the contrasting much more better and my chart looks much more better. Anuj, yes, you can add month-wise. Yes, actually my hierarchy is not getting updated, but if you created the hierarchy by year, quarter, month, date, just remove the year, quarter, just click the cross and remove that from the y-axis and sorry, on the x-axis, and you'll just get by month. Okay. Okay. Rather the fiscal is in that due date table. Okay. All right. You can do shade area to change like couple of background colors and all that. But I mean, those cosmetic changes, you can look it up and find yourself like, where to do that. All right. There's a lot of cosmetic things you can do. Okay. Now, what do you see over here, by the way? Any interesting thing you see from this graph, just as a side question? Any interesting thing over here? So if you look at the sales amount by due date, okay, it trails slightly behind the sales amount. Okay, why? Why is that? Logically, can you answer? Logically, why does that make sense? That sales amount by due date is slightly trailing behind the sales amount by order date. Because what is due date? What is due date? Due date is when the order needs to be shipped, right? Isn't it? Or like Abhishek pointed out, maybe it's like the day that customer paid for that particular order. So due date will always be after the order date, isn't it? So if you're summing up all the sales by due date, then there'll be a small lag between your order date and due date. I mean, this doesn't really matter, but just a logical question which I was throwing out. Okay. So cool. One visual is done. Okay, let's look at another visual. Let's maybe create, you can resize this however you want to. Okay, make some space. Now, let's actually create another visual showing maybe uh, order quantity by reseller. Okay, let's try to do that. So we typically want to see in which country or region the resellers have the highest order quantity. Okay, that's what we want to see. Now, from over here, okay, from let's say where is reseller? Reseller, there's a reseller. Okay, let's drag the country region from the reseller. Okay, here's the hierarchy. Okay, uh, let's drag the country region to some blank area on the map. Okay. Uh, map and fill visual maps. Okay. Wait, will need to do this. I will need to enable this, otherwise it will not let me map this. If you're getting this error, you can do this also. Okay, it just shows you like where to go. Okay, so map security, and then I need to give permissions for ArcGIS and this and this. Okay, so it should work now. Yeah, okay. So I've dragged in country region. Immediately you see that since I'm enabled now ArcGIS, it is now by default, if you can see, it has now created a map for me. Okay, because my country regions are listed in, like, all the countries which are there, those are listed in my table. It has actually created immediately by default some map for me based on the country region column which I've dragged. Okay, now I need to see the order quantity by the reseller. What is the column which I need to now put in this map? What is the column I need to put in this map to see my visualization? Again, my question is, I want to see the order quantity by reseller by each country. Rutvik, yes, says sales order quantity, right? Very good. So I will go to my sales table, and you see there's already an order quantity over here. Okay, so I can drag this order quantity into my, and here immediately. What do you see? Now, can you tell me immediately which country had the highest order quantity by reseller? Just by looking at the map. North America, right? Easy, isn't it? So I can hover over the bubble also, and it will show me the sum of order quantity for each country. Now, by default, it's actually created a bubble map for me. Again, you can do a lot of formatting for this visual. Okay, you can add legend, you can do a lot of things. Bubble size is sum of order quantity. Again, you can do whatever average of order quantity or something else, whatever. Okay, and depending on that, you can see your report. Okay, make sense, everyone? Okay, cool. Everyone with me till now? All right. Okay. Now maybe let's create another one. What should we do? Maybe let's do sales amount by product category. And what does reseller have? Reseller has something called as business type. Okay. So let's maybe create a sales amount by product category. Okay. I want to see which product category is having the highest sales. Okay. And I also want to see which business type is getting me the maximum revenue. Okay, which business type is getting maximum revenue. Can somebody tell me what are the fields I will need over here? So again, my question is, I want to see which product categories are giving me the maximum revenue, and within which business type am I getting the maximum revenue? Let's drag this a little up to make some space. Can somebody tell me what are the columns I will need? Product and reseller, very good. Business type, good. Okay, so let's create that. All right. Let's first take sales amount because that is our key field. Okay, let's drag it over here in the blank section. Okay, now what is the second thing I need? I need product category. Where is my product category? It's under product. So let's go to product. Okay, let's go to category. All right, and let's pull that in. Okay, immediately what do you see? So here's the beauty of Power BI and even Tableau or whatever, like, you know, you visualization tool. By default, it actually makes sense of what you're trying to see. Okay, so by default, numerical, it's going to put it on the y-axis. The category is going to put it on the x-axis immediately. Okay, and now what is the third thing? I want to see by business type. So where is reseller? Here. Okay, and I'm going to put business type. Now automatically you see Power BI created a clustered column chart for you. Okay, it created immediately a clustered column chart because we dragged in two different categories and one numerical category. By default, the only chart which you can actually make by default is your clustered column chart. So what did it do? It actually broke it down into business category. Okay, and then it broke it down into business type. So here is like the business type, like warehouse, value added reseller, specialty bike shop. This is like blank, nothing. Okay, so all the now categories are broken down into special business types also. Okay, uh, if I don't want to see it like this, I can go to the matrix type over here. Where is it? I always forget which is the matrix. Not tree map. Donut chart is also not good. Slicer, no. Huh, there. So maybe over here, something like a matrix makes more sense. Okay, because let's say I want to just see by numbers which one is better. Vedant, what is the question? Is there a limit on how many columns of data we can add for a visual map? Yeah, I mean, now if you add a fourth category, like it will again try to break it down into further. So after a while, your graph will start getting distorted. Your data will start getting. You can of course add one more category here. It will break it down. If there is a hierarchy, then it will break it down into subcategories and all that. But you just add whatever data fields make logical sense, right? I mean, you can't go on adding something which does not have any link together, right? Then your visualization will get really affected badly. Okay, so yeah, you can add as many as you want, provided that there is actually a category and all that over here. So that is what you can do. Okay, so you can do this as a matrix. All right, and let's click this matrix and let's go to filters pane. Okay, now there's one category called not applicable. Okay, there's something called a not applicable. So maybe in this filters pane, I can actually go to business type and I can select all and unselect the not applicable. So now on my matrix chart, not applicable is gone. Okay, because maybe that's one field which means that there is no reseller type over there. So maybe I just don't want to see it on the visualization, or whoever I'm presenting this report to, I do not want that person to see that. So I can remove it from the chart itself. Okay. So you have now another good matrix over here, and you can drag drop whatever you want to, like change shape and all that, up to you. Now let's go to formatting for this matrix. Okay, let's go to format and maybe make it a little larger. And in the formatting matrix, okay, let's I want to search for conditional. So I can conditional. Okay, so in my conditional, in my cell elements. Okay, let's turn on the data bars. Where is it? Yeah. Okay. So this is another, like, a really good cosmetic visual which you can add. So what did it do on the data bars? Did you see? What has it done? What has it done over here? So basically what you have done is you have added actual numbers on the table, plus you have also added like a bar chart to it. Okay, you have also added like a bar chart to your visual. So I'm just expanding this so that it looks, the bars look more better like these. Okay. So here I've added the bars now. So just, I mean, there are like thousands of things you can do in Power BI. So I'm just showing you a couple of things which you can do extra. Okay. So here it's just a way of making your visuals more appealing. So because you're going to present it to some executive person. Okay. So just to make it more clear, I mean, because what was the whole idea? The whole idea was that you need to make your report as concise and clear as possible. Okay. That was the whole idea. So uh, that is why we are actually making this so that it's very easy to understand whoever sees it. Okay. So now when we've added bars, it just gives more clear idea that, of course, I mean, those bikes are having the most sales across every business type. Okay. Bikes have a higher sales amount overall, and value added resellers are clearly the most people who are selling, or the most type of resellers who are selling or getting us much revenue after, sorry, and then second is your warehouse. Specialty bike shop is not giving you as much revenue for bikes as these two others are. So you can immediately now see the difference. Okay, cool. Let's add one more final visual. Okay, let's add a slicer. All right. Now slicers are a tool which filter the visuals on a report page to a specific selection. Okay. So in this case, let's create a slicer so that we can actually drill down, or select one performance for either a month, quarter, and year, something. Okay. Now let's go to the fields pane again. Right. And let's select the fiscal hierarchy, and let's drag it to some, make it shorter a little. There's the fiscal hierarchy. Okay. So I'm going to drag that entire fiscal hierarchy over here. Okay. Now in my visualization pane, I'm going to select this slicer. You see, it has now created a sort of slicer for me. Okay. And we can remove, oh, it is showing quarter and date. Good. I thought it was not there. So we can remove quarter, we can remove date, so that we only have month and year. Okay. Now, let's say your manager asks you to see data for a specific month only. Okay. I can remove the date. So why is it still showing? Oh, month has already, sorry. So now if I want to see for a specific month, okay, I can actually go and select maybe October and September, something. Okay. If I have like only one drill down, okay, you can select a slicer between years or specific months if you want to do it like that. So I selected just September 2018. Immediately the entire report got filtered on this particular slicer. So it is like a filter, but slicer goes through across all the reports which you have created. Okay, that is the use of slicer. So when you create, okay, so slicer, again, just repeating, slicer is nothing but a filter, okay, which goes across the entire report at once. All right. So let's say, I mean, here, obviously, date is the most logical slicer you can put. So that if I select any date or any month or whatever, that entire report will be filtered on that particular date only. Okay. So now I selected FY, the entire year 2018. So you see the entire report has been filtered on financial year 2018. Okay, so this is now only showing me 2018 data. Let's say I select 2019, it is now going to show me 2019. How do you create it? So I mean, I dragged this fiscal hierarchy. Okay, see here is where hierarchy comes into effect very easily, because I had already created hierarchy. I did not need to go again and create a hierarchy in the particular field. So I dragged the hierarchy. I selected the slicer from here. This is the slicer visualization, and whatever fields I did not want, I removed it from the field panel here. Okay. Now you see there's an option called drill through. Okay. I mean, keep all filters on. That's how the slicers will work. But let's say now now this is only one report. Okay. Let's say I have another page which has some other data showing. Now, if you click this cross report as on, then what is going to happen is when you click on a slicer or you select particular values in this slicer over here, it's going to filter across all the different pages of the report. So if your report has 5 or 6 pages, this slicer is going to work across all the different pages. So again, that is like, depending on what type of report you're creating. Okay, that is how it works. Now, some more like uh, formatting things you can do is like, where is the view? Yeah, you can go to themes. Okay. um there is something called as executive theme. I don't know if it's there or not. Bloom, no, frontier, huh? So I can make this an executive theme and it'll look a little bit different. You can then go to this formatting visuals, and you can make all the different charts that you have created look much more better and all of that. Okay, you can fill this with a blue color or something, and whatever changes like you want to do. All right. So this is how you create a report in Power BI. Now you have created a report in Power BI. Okay. What is the next step? You need to publish the report. So you save this file and you do all of that stuff. And now you go to file and you go to publish. Now, of course, we don't have a Power BI service with us, so we won't be able to publish it. But what you can do is actually you can sign up for a free trial for Power BI service. I think they'll give you an access for 30 days or something. Uh, so just sign it up. You will have Power BI access, Power BI service access, which is, like I said, a service in the cloud. So sign it up, go there. You can publish the report on that Power BI workspace if you want to. So just to give you an idea of how you publish files, and then in that Power BI service, you can actually see your actual report as a web page or like as an application. And then you can play around with all the filters which you have created over here, drag and drop and all that, which you can do. So that is how it actually works. Okay. Any questions? Abhishek, you're saying map part. Okay. Map part is like, because so whenever you use any geographical value in Power BI, okay, you drag and drop, automatically the Power BI will start creating maps for you. Otherwise, this is what, if you see, I'm hovering over this map visualization. This is what this visualization is. So you click on map, you can drag and drop fields, and Power BI will automatically do that for you. Okay. Can you please show how to publish the Power BI? I don't have Power BI service option because I'm already a paid user in different organizations, so I cannot use that. But You just go to Power BI service, you sign up for a free trial. I think it's available to everybody. Sign up for a free trial, and then it's very easy. Like it's just creating a service on the cloud. Okay. And then when you publish this, when you go to file and publish, it will show you what options are available. So if you have a Power BI service already running, it will actually show you that option to you. Okay. It'll ask some credentials and all that. So this, you say publish to Power BI, and I mean, I can save, of course, sales exec summary, something. Okay. It saves as a Power BI file. I can save it. And now here is where I will need to enter my email address, and whatever email address you have signed up with on a Power BI service, it will automatically show you that Power BI service to you. Okay. So you don't have to do anything. Just sign up for a free trial of Power BI service and you can publish it. It's a free trial. I don't know how many days it is, 15 or 30 days. I don't know how long they let you do that. But just for seeing how it looks like, you can actually go there and do it. Okay. So let me cancel this. MS65 dev program. Yeah, that's actually also good. You can sign up for MS365 for 80 days. That's actually a good option as well. You can use all Microsoft services. Rehan, what is your question? Slicer. Also, somebody was asking why select data bars. I did not understand that question actually. Slicer. Okay. So nothing. I dragged any hierarchy over here and then I selected the slicer. So it made it a slicer. That's all. As simple as that. So in Power BI, all the things are available over here. Like if you don't want to drag it on the blank part of the report, you can actually first click on the visualization and then drag things in the visualization, if that actually helps you. Okay. Otherwise, you can drag the fields first and then make it whatever visualization you want to. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? Yes, good question. You can share a report to somebody who doesn't have Power BI service. They will need to download Power BI desktop and open the PBX file over there. Okay. Now, when you share a report in Power BI, okay, the data also goes with it. Because if you remember, a Power BI desktop has its own memory. Okay. So it is loading all the data in it. So when you actually share a PBX file, the data also goes with the PBX file internally. So anyone can open it on their end without having access to the data directly. Okay. Of course, then they can't make any changes over there in terms of like they cannot load and all the data. So depending on the data is small, all the things will be there. But if the data is big, then it might not work. But yes, you can definitely share your report. So I think the assignment is creating a Power BI file. I'm guessing the assignment must be creating a Power BI file, right? Yeah, in Power BI service, you can actually give access to edit or view only and all of those things by users. Okay. If we uncheck the slicer filter, yes, it will be the regular report. Okay. Oh, assignment is multiple choice question. Okay, cool. Then it's easy. So if you share dashboard on your portfolio, good question. So I mean, Power BI service is one way to do that. You publish this report to Power BI. I mean, create a nice looking report and dashboard, publish it to Power BI service, and till the time it is active, if you have signed up for a free trial, that probably is the best way to share it in your portfolio. I mean, the only problem is that if you have not signed up for a paid trial, you might lose that after a while. So maybe publish it or sign it up. Yeah, after the free trial, you have to pay it. Like there's no way you can share this. The only way you can do that is maybe export it into some PDF or something. So you can click on export and export to PDF and just show it in your portfolio, the PDF. That's all. That's the other way to do it. My clock is on the wrong time. Is it not 7:54 in everybody's clock? Are you sure? Yeah, it's 7, right? So why is my clock on the wrong time? I didn't get it. Oh, you are seeing that. Okay. So this is actually a virtual machine, which is running somewhere in, I think it's running somewhere in Europe, I believe. So that's why the time is 2:25 p.m. So it's not the actual, my actual laptop time. This is a virtual Windows virtual machine running on a server somewhere in Europe. That's why it's showing as 2:25 p.m. Okay. So that is why you see this clock. Good observation, by the way. Okay. So any other questions, anyone? Uh, so take this data set. Okay. I think this data set, I will share it um, m- with the Skillslash folks as well. They will send it out, this report and this data set to you. You will have the recording of this lecture. You can go through it again. And as I said, if you are taking, I mean, if you are looking to go deeper into Power BI, maybe you can join, I think Skillslash has a course on Power BI as well, on visualization. So where we go much deeper into, talking about these DAX queries and calculations and all the more complex part. Or the other ways, like you can self-study, and like I said, certification is very important. If you want to apply for a job in Power BI, you definitely should have a certification which will improve your chances drastically for getting a job in visualization. Okay. And yeah, that is what you should do. You can practice. There are a lot of samples available online. Just search for Power BI samples. Um, or if you have some, just maybe select, I mean, the best way to practice is actually select some sample SQL database queries. Okay. So you will get an entire list of SQL queries and with data, which you can create your MySQL server. It's free. You can create it on your machine, load all the data in. It has like huge amount of data in it. And then connect your Power BI to that MySQL. You will have thousands and thousands of rows of data, and you can play around and build your mock report on it. Okay, cool. So assignment details, I'm not sure. Oh, Mohit, you have already passed Microsoft Power BI. Great. There are, I think, 3 levels, if I'm right. So I have not taken any certification on Power BI. Like I have a data science certification, but if I'm right, Mohit, I think there are 3 levels, right, in Power BI. One is a developer, one is an analyst, and one is something else. One is an admin or something. So again, depending on what type of role and what type of experience you have in Power BI, you can actually go for one of these exams. Okay. Uh, what project we should work to? Um, so again, like if you, I would say, if you really want to show Power BI skills, then you need to have at least some, complex calculations and DAX queries and all of that over there. I mean, just a simple report wouldn't show. So for that, again, you would need to do some extra study to build that. Okay. So I would recommend, like I said, go for a certification. You'll actually get a lot of knowledge over there. Yeah, like Mohit mentioned, interactive dashboards and all that. You need to. So there are many examples on the net. Just look it up. Look up those examples. Download those PBX files. See what people have created. Okay, it'll give you a really good idea on what things you can do in Power BI. There are thousands of PBX files available on internet. Just download some of them. There are really, really good ones out there. So they'll give you a good idea of how to actually create these dashboards. Okay, and how to use visuals and many DAX expressions and all that. Thanks everyone, and have a good night. Okay, and good luck again for your journey.